What's up, everybody? This is Carrick with ACG, and I'm here with Johnny doing the Best Gaming Podcast 514, I believe. 514?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the gaming news of the week and hopefully have some good questions. I do have a ton of questions from Telegram now, which is like for some reason become a thing for the channel, as well as Twitter followers, Discordians, and we'll talk about Oblivion, Doom, May games coming up, some of the games we've been playing. We'll probably keep the, like we did with Final Fantasy, we'll keep the expedition stuff to a bare minimum because it's like one day.
The spoilers wise and stuff.
Well, I mean, even discussion wise, because like people haven't the people aren't even going to get into it till tonight. That's the number one question I got. So we'll probably keep that to a bare minimum for this podcast.
Yeah.
And talk about it next.
They
podcast.
got into it yesterday, but probably a lot we say will.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know of almost anybody of the 200 people that I'm in the Discord group with that have even played it yet. They're all waiting for the weekend, is what I mean. They're waiting,
okay.
to jump in because they didn't want to do it over the weekdays. We have some new news, some rumors, some stuff that got canceled, which is really sad. A game got canceled before it even got announced, so we're going to talk about that as well. Yeah, which was actually very sad. Thank you to everybody who's showing up. We did. They might be asking because I posted it yesterday.
Maybe. No, it was more like, hey, is there a game that was canceled that you were looking forward to? I think last week we got a question like that.
Gotcha. Hubert the Mad just said, I wanted to say I enjoyed your Mama Sherry Kitchen Nightmares shout out a few podcasts ago. She's the lady that owned the restaurant that Gordon ate at. Awesome. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, that's very cool. Let's see. What have we been doing this week? What games have we been playing? What activities in life have we been doing? Have you been doing anything other than just games?
I have been a bit stressed out this week, I'm not gonna lie, just work stuff. It's been pretty hectic. So mostly just games and a bit of like guitar playing for relaxation. And watching shows. Yeah. There's this new show with John Hamm where he's basically like a classy delinquent robbing houses and stuff as a rich guy.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
Which it sounds a bit eclectic, but it's the sort of role that fits him perfectly.
It does fit him perfectly. What channel is that on?
That's on Apple TV, and it's called Your Friends and Neighbors. Ooh. And it's currently got like 4 episodes and 1 each week coming out.
When it comes to shows like that where it's coming out at the same time, do you have a tendency to like wait till? Normally, do you have a tendency to wait till it's done? Or?
Yeah, it really depends on the show. Because some really benefit from the continuity of just being able to watch in close succession. This one, I think, works pretty well as a weekly because you can, jump in there, have a good time. You don't really need the full context, like super fresh. So I'm liking it so far. And then, playing some games. Expedition 33. Oblivion, right? Remake. So it's been actually a packed week with stuff coming out.
Yeah, this has been actually a pretty horrid week for like stress wise when it comes to everybody that I know. I mean, luckily I haven't really had too much personally. I've been pretty lucky this week. It was last week that I was having the issues with like trying to set up servers and stuff, but you weren't the only one who said multiple people I was talking to in the chat were all saying that this week was pretty rough, that they were having some like I don't know what it is. Maybe there's a financial thing coming up. Maybe there's like quarterlies. Maybe it's taxes for some people, and the fact that some people are worried about being late, that kind of stuff. I don't know, but it seems like a lot of people brought up that this was a stressful week for some reason, which sucks. So if you're out there and you're having a stressful week, hopefully we're going to add some fun to it. We'll just have to see.
Kickback.
Yeah, some kickback fun. We did get some really cool questions, some thought-provoking ones. I want to start the podcast with one. And because I actually thought this was awesome. If an alien species judged Earth solely based on video games, what 3 titles would most confuse them? What's the rolling game where you roll and you pick up trash? Katamari's Democracy or whatever it's called. It's old. It's like
Oh,
PS2,
Rock
PS.
of Ages?
No,
No.
that
Oh,
one
no.
might have a mini game in it that does that, but it's like
Okay.
Katamari something, I think is what it's called. And every time I see it, I'm like, what the hell is that game? I would say since that confuses me, it would probably confuse
Yeah,
aliens.
the crab fighting game was pretty confusing
Oh
to
my
me.
god, yeah,
It
the
was like a
Dark Souls crab.
Souls.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, what the hell was that called? I think it's got some DLC coming out too as well. So like that one would definitely be confusing. What's another
Yeah.
like just absolutely weird balls out game?
Well, something like Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, where you're literally a man in a pot.
A
Like,
man in a pot?
do you know that game or no?
I do not know what game you're talking about.
So you're a man in a cauldron, and you have a hammer, or like a long hammer,
Right.
and with the hammer, you're like attaching yourself to like surfaces, and you're platforming. So you're like propelling yourself with the hammer, and it's like an incredibly hard and frustrating game, like made on purpose. And every time you fall down all the way to the bottom. It's designed that way. So you have to restart all the way from the beginning. And every time you do so, Bennett Foddy narrates a long quote from some like
what the hell
obscure narrative. Yeah, just to shit on you.
What about genital jousting? You remember that game?
Oh, a classic.
Oh, the classic, and with all the sounds. What do we got? Super chat. What's up? Manual DOP 500 super chat. Thank you as always for the super chats. It's hugely helpful in these days, especially for a channel like mine. So some people say Outer Worlds is mid. I'm not sure about that. But then what is a mid game in your guys' opinion? So this came up yesterday, and it was most likely him in this chat because this is too timely and the wording is too timely. Yesterday in the chat, people were dropping the word mid for a bunch of stuff, and I was like, like everything, mid is sort of overused. And we were trying to figure out what a mid, what a mid game is. Personally, I think the descriptor is it's more casual. It obviously doesn't, it doesn't fit anywhere in AAA, AA or anything because you could have a mid game of any kind. It could be a free to play mid game. But we were trying to figure out what a mid game is. To me, I think a mid game is one that I'm not apathetic towards playing it, but when I'm playing it, I don't receive any highs in the gameplay or highs in the story. It's like it's enough to keep me there, and well, it's enough to keep me there. That's sort of.
Is Dragon Age Veilguard a mid game?
So no, for me, it would probably, the more I played it, would hinge toward either I really liked it, or not really, but that I liked it or didn't. I did like some of the stuff that happened, but I felt that it was wrapped up in oddities. It was wrapped up. So like a lot of the games we're playing now, where one thing hits and you're like, oh, this is great. And then something else in the same game really pushes you away. And, really makes you go like, whoa, what is this? So, but I mean, it could. I mean, I don't know, because I haven't played it all the way through. So
I think that if a game has some area where it excels, you can't really call it a mid game.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Right, because then it starts to go up above the mid, right?
Yes.
Are you thinking a graphic equalizer? Because whenever anybody says mid, I think of 0 decibels or something. And, are you pumping up,
Well, yes, I'm thinking that if you have any transients.
Exactly.
So like people who don't know it, like if you have some peaks, that to me is already not mid, even if the rest is bland.
Exactly.
So for me, like Veilguard, it had a bunch of bland elements with some of the narrative and the companions, but then some stuff was really high quality, like the production, the environments, some polish and stuff. So I don't view it as a mid game personally. I think that we can find any number of like AA examples.
Well, I can tell you a AAA example, or what's considered a AAA game, technically, the medium. I think the medium perfectly fits the mid.
Yeah, and
I mean, the game, it's almost like a prophecy being fulfilled. It is just, it's there.
Yeah,
I can't even get emotional enough to discuss what I did or didn't like about it. It was like,
or
it is just a
what
thing.
was sorry, I'm totally blank on the name. So the GTA similar game,
Saints Row?
that Saints Row.
Yeah, Saints Row pissed me off though because there was a lot of stuff that looked like it could be good, but Saints Row could be mid by a lot of. Oh, Agents of Mayhem was mid. Agents of Mayhem was the one made prior to the Saints Row by those guys. That one was mid, where you were like, "Where's the mayhem in your game called Mayhem?" Like it was. They need to elicit something, right? It needs to like pop up and be like, "Hey, here's a thing." But I think overall I don't like the term mid other than to tease the term mid because there's rarely a game out there other than the medium and a couple others. There's very few mid games. They usually are either good to average. And average doesn't mean mid either. That's why I don't like mid. It doesn't. It's a slang that does. It means
it's one
even
of those
less.
words that becomes so omnipresent that loses its meaning.
Absolutely does. Yeah. Palky was saying the medium's AAA. See, the medium is a weird one. You have to go look up its development and how they got funded. But that's why when we started talking about this, I said in some ways it is considered a AAA. It's a very
it could
game.
be AAA, but no element really stands out as well. I mean, I remember Strangers of Paradise was maybe not AAA, right? It was kind of a side title. Yes. The one with the horrible environments and like
that was Final Fantasy, right?
It was a side,
Doesn't it surprise you that a side spin-off of a game based on Final Fantasy could be considered mid? Isn't that pretty crazy when you think about the IP being involved, all the stuff being involved, and it's like how mid that game was? Well, the Avengers was pretty mid. Let's get away from mid. I hate the term. It's not working for me. It's not working. But it's a good question, I think. And when it comes to Outer Worlds, I would say I could see somebody skating through Outer Worlds and not getting up or down with the story, the combat's here or there, and not really gravitating towards anything. But as a game classification, once you start talking about technical elements or how the game plays, I would say it's not mid. But that's just me, Doesn't mean I'm right. It's just sort of the way it feels as a term. It's an odd term. The other one is, what's the most unplayable or broken game you'll defend like it's your child? And then we'll move on.
I think League of Legends I will defend. Because a lot of people, even the people who play, man, they have a lot of people such a toxic relationship with the game.
Really?
That they say things like, I hate this game, and yet they're addicted, right? They're playing it all day, and they say things like, "I wish I never got into this game.
I wish I never played it or got into it."
Yeah,
Damn.
that type of thing, and that's so common that, well, it's actually a meme in the community, and I hate that. I think it's like any other competitive game. You can have a healthy relationship with it and have a nice competitive outlet in your life as a result, if that works for you. And if not, maybe it's not your game. That's okay too. Or you can play casual, like non-ranked games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think the game's great.
Outriders was a good mid game. Outriders was definitely lower than middle.
Yeah, it was
for me.
Yeah, it was squarely
not good.
Dude, do you remember the tiny cutscenes you would have when you
that was a weird one.
Jumped a bridge or
that was a weird one. Moving on from there to the first topic, Marathon. So talking to a bunch of people who played it, and sort of sitting down, watching it, playing a bit, seeing all the, now we've got all the footage. It is, dude, Marathon is such a puzzle to me in so many ways. Like, first of all, it's a puzzle because it makes you wonder the genesis of that versus, say, a mode in Destiny 2, right? And then when you think of Destiny 2 and you think of the technical issues they've had, so they've had to vault in the past, they've had these things that they talk about with memory. So maybe, you might look at it and go like, okay, maybe there's something in there. There's a reason why this got spooled out into its own side game versus being its own thing. Personally, I'm just saying personally, it feels more like at one point it was going to be a major game, and it's been reset and reconfigured, and the feedback was so bad that whatever we're getting now is, this smaller thing. But it's been interesting. Even the devs are like, we don't even know what we're charging for it. It's not a major game. Like, they're downplaying it as quick as possible. But you look at Marathon, and dude, it's one of the more confusing games, because if you think of games being made the day and date, like you look at, you're like, we made Marathon right now, it would confuse you, because you'd say, Concord came out. Why do these guys not know that you need to hit on multiple elements? Even though Concord's not the same, I'm just saying it's used as an example of a big game doing poorly. But if you understand development, 3 or 4 years of development, 4 or 5, you start looking at where they were aiming and what they were aiming for at the time when they came up with the idea. You wake up before Game of Thrones, a TV show. If you had decided you were going to make a Game of Thrones TV show, styled TV show, you might end up going against Game of Thrones without knowing you're going to, because of development time taking so long. So all that being said, dude, that game is so confusing to me, because not only does its art look everywhere, like everywhere, there's so many, like I watched a podcast with 2 artists. There was a video game artist and an artist, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, more of a traditional oil painting, stuff like that. And they were breaking it down, just going, I mean, they were talking about it, and they talked about it because somebody asked them. They're one of them is into video games, but that's not their big thing. And it was more about the art and the medium and the passion behind art. And they were talking about just different things. They were sectioning out some screenshots, and they were saying, like, what's interesting here is like the characters and even their shape and how they're made not fitting into the game world as well as you would expect from Destiny devs, especially with their high art assets in the past. And then what I asked was, does it remind them of Mirror's Edge a little bit? Because there's some iconography and there's some bold color use that I'm wondering if they don't want to hit too much of a copy, but maybe there's only not one good way, but maybe when it comes to the iconography that Mirror's Edge chose, there aren't as many alternatives you can choose. You know what I mean? Like, if you maybe when it comes to trying to boldly get data to the player, maybe there are only certain colors that really do that well before you start splitting off into color theory, and where a color that's slight shade different can mean a completely different thing. But I was looking at the gameplay, I was watching their trailer, which doesn't, like, it's like a fever dream of science fiction. It looks like something that people who run the YouTube channel Dust has all those sci-fi shows, a little like a Black Mirror, but they do YouTube, and they have their own TV channel, I should say. But it reminds me a little bit of a trailer for the next 10 episodes of Dust. Not 1, but 10. Like, when you watch that opening movie, you're like, what the I mean, it's just all over the place. And yet, the gameplay isn't. The gameplay is like solidly, generally a very specific kind of shooter that doesn't really have any surprises. It's like, here's what we're offering in this way. So it's a lot about the art looking very eclectic and the offering looking very lean. And that's what it was funny, because I'd asked them to sort of do a little discussion afterwards, and I was like, does that make sense? Does it make sense that maybe the gameplay is lean and getting lean, not getting leaner, but people who are playing it are like, okay, there's just, there's like things you can do. There's some complexity there, but it's still fairly lean. I mean, they've even stated it, it's especially in that particular genre. But the art style is so eclectic that it's confusing to the player, where it feels almost like you are playing a painting by somebody who isn't very detailed, but they're more, these broad strokes kind of stuff. It's just such an odd game, man. It's
hard to describe too. I think maybe the best way to think about the color stuff is that there are no gradients. So when people look at it, it's like they painted a whole thing with literally one like hex color. And that whole thing is that color. Where normally what you see is that stuff have gradients, and it's also based on lighting, right? Like how the lighting hits, you'll have a shadow here, so the color is brighter at a certain place. And there, it's almost like it is that Mirror's Edge thing where,
Yeah.
yes, this entire object is completely red and like the same hex, the same code of red, which is a bit shocking to the eye. And they got a lot of yellow, right? Which is sort of cyberpunk staple color. So I think thematically it works, but it is pretty shocking to the eye. But what I don't like, and I think doesn't play well with that aesthetic, is the lack of detail or lack of like realism, maybe, or like, yeah, I think it's detail what I'm looking for in the environments. Because if you had highly detailed environments coupled with this like bold color usage, that could be really interesting. But it does harp back to Mirror's Edge, where everything is very stylized. And that looked great back then. But anyone who's seen the game recently, it's a bit rough to look at, like when it comes to the overall environments and everything.
I think the big thing about Destiny, though, is there's a detail that's in the textures, even for back then on the 360 when it first came out. There's a detail that existed where we're in the future now and there's less detail. And I do wonder if, in particular, it's difficult to parse what is supposed to matter. Because the iconography is almost like a digital graffiti, if you think about it that way. Graffiti usually is a representation of the artist, and you'll see graffiti artists that look dramatically different, and you can tell who's done what. I mean, there's a ton of really good graffiti books you can buy, and I'm sure websites, I do more of the books, but that talk about the artist and why they use what they do and why the fonts they use and how they've done specific things and where they paint, right? All that. But I think especially with Marathon, digital graffiti is sort of a cyberpunk thing, right? But cyberpunk generally has some dichotomy to it, where you have the super sleek, skyscrapers and the very flat glasses, the things that sort of reflect the corporate structure and people locked inside their glass coffins. And then you have the debris structure, the underground, where the type of graffiti and stuff you would see would also be mixed with detail. This, in Marathon, it's like they somewhat merged them, but there's not a lot of detail. And especially so I saw a video, no lie, they redid a bunch of the art in the game when they were explaining the game because they were nervous that the people watching the video wouldn't understand the iconography. And I was like, ooh, that might be a sign right there that we're, that this might be a sort of a troublesome spot for them when it comes to trying to get across. And we've played it. You play a game where it's got weird iconography sometimes, and you're like, is that a shield or is that a circle? Because they've tried to be too highfalutin, or they've tried to come too close to the mark, and they've got this sort of generic feel to it. With Marathon, it's not generic, but it's also not defined. It's almost like it's made its own little thing, which is like a sci-fi lo-fi, which you might see on a YouTube channel that does study music, where they'll have that occasional art that they show. But the problem is in movement, it's weird. A solo picture, it can, I think it works. But when it starts moving, you're like, ooh, what is this? And you see a lot of people responding in that direction, which is, it's an odd one, man. I was just talking to somebody who was super, super positive about it for a little bit while playing it. And I was like, so what do you think? And they're like, oh, I've already stopped. They're like, I actually feel sort of bad for talking it up. It's like, it's not,
not there.
It's just not there. Yeah. There was some excitement. But
I found myself even doubting my own impressions, because my first impressions were pretty bad. Yeah. When I saw the footage, I just thought it looked really low detail and not interesting, not compelling. And then I heard a few YouTubers talk really highly about the game, and they seemed to be, I don't know, competent, like they knew what they were talking about. They played these extraction games and stuff. And so I returned to it, like trying to look at it through their eyes and stuff, but I still don't see it. I think it might be one of those things where it literally either speaks to you or you're incapable of like
Yeah, of parsing it.
appreciating
Yeah,
the,
might be.
you know,
It might be one of
like
those
an
games
acquired
where
taste.
it's going to be a filter and a filter. It's not only going to be the extraction. It might even be extraction plus Bungie
True.
plus art
There's a lot of
style as a
filters
There's a
now.
lot of
Yeah.
filters. You're going to be there's a niche within a niche within a niche. I'm fascinated by it. Don't want any like negativity to, like if it's
Sure.
fun or whatever. I do think that the mixed messaging has hurt them tremendously. Of like when that came out, there were certain things people couldn't talk about, and they were used as these linchpins of discussion. Oh, there's certain things we can't talk about, which is going to magically change everything. Then they opened the floodgates and said it was okay to talk about it, and you were like, seriously, that was the thing? You know, like these were the discussion points you were saying you couldn't talk about, and now we've changed some of the I guess architecture around the discussion to where we can talk about it. It's sort of like when somebody says, man, your birthday present is amazing, and you get it and you're like, it's mid, to use a term from earlier today. It's like, oh, okay, I see, you were excited about it, but it's very difficult. Or when a friend buys you something that's somewhat cool to you, but you know it's really for them when they come over to your house, you're like, dude, you just bought a present that's more for you than for me. But yeah, we'll just have to see, man. I'm excited to check it out. Well, I'm not excited to play it right now. I haven't seen anything like that, but I just want it to come out so that we can see if it offers anything more, because regardless of its reception overall, I think for the most part you couldn't say Concord was bad. Concord was really, really blah. And we'll have to see if the unique stuff that goes on here is better because it's unique and it gets a hardcore following maybe. It's competition.
I would hate to see people color their impressions based on what Concord turned out to be.
I see them.
Because it's a different game, right? Like, we do have to give it its own chance in a way. So, you know, don't go out there just wishing the game fails because, like, I don't like the cynicism around that. But I do understand people who are not excited based on what they've shown, because I'm really not. But
I would agree with that.
I'm open to seeing more stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What's up, David? Appreciate the new watcher. Thank you very much. Spread the word. Some people are asking about the finals. If it reminds me of that. That was something that somebody on Telegram had asked too. I would say it does at times remind me of the finals. I think the big issue is it reminds me of a free-to-play game. Not Concord's visuals were at a level to where there were times where I was like, you know, if it was delivering at a different time 3 years prior, then
it looked premium.
The full
I think,
price
more or
was
less.
premium. You'd be like, oh, okay, but the competition is stiff in this area. That's the other thing. The competition is stiff, but do not confuse stiff competition and excellence in those particular places as a popular thing. For example, you may have an Olympic sport that seems like it's super popular because there are a couple good people at it. And then you go out of that and you're like, oh, it's not popular in the popular sense. It's
so you can't ever get number 1 or number 2, but getting to number 3.
Oh, no. No. Well, yeah. Well, that too. Yeah, that's actually not what I meant, but that is a solid point. That is a solid point. What I meant was, like, I love archery. Archery is a big deal, and it's in the Olympics. But if you go outside and you say, you know, we're going to an archery event, there is not, you know what I mean? It's not
nobody knows about it.
Right. Curling is the other one. That is what I was going to mention. But curling has become arbitrarily, sarcastically popular. So, and sarcasm works. So I don't know how much it's probably more popular than archery, just because of when people see it, they're like, this is a sport? Like, what?
Yeah,
this
people
is like,
talk about it ironically.
It's 3 activities that somebody merged together and was like, let's make a sport out of this. So yeah, it's going to be very cool to see. I want to check it out. I want to sort of see what the gameplay is like and see if in the end, even if it is niche, who enjoys it, because there might be some space there. I don't know if it'll bring people in. I think that might be the problem, is it may not even bring a ton of Bungie people in, but you know, it may exist in its space depending on the price, right? Because price is right. Like, you know, pardon the pun, but price is a big deal right now. Price is becoming ignore the economy for a second, because I know that's a problem. But the big problem also is competition, just the amount of competition that is existing for that price. So even if $60 is easier for you to come by, if you've got 60 and it was easier to come by, but you can only spend 60 on one thing, there's a lot of things out there at 60. There's a lot of things out there at 40, 30, 10.
Yeah, it filters it.
It filters it.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, man, I don't know. This one interests me because it doesn't grab me like Destiny did, regardless of my disappointment with Destiny over the years. Destiny, and these guys know they're shooters, so that's one thing that
part probably will feel good, right?
I honestly, to me, that part, I don't see how it couldn't. But then, we've seen games from a company.
Yeah, you can't take it for granted.
You can't. There we go. Yeah, you can't take it for granted.
But speaking of taking for granted, we are taking for granted that there will be a narrative or a story because they've said so. But we've seen nothing so far of it, right? There's none of it in the.
I mean, no real story,
right? No overarching.
But I mean, when I was playing Destiny, it was like there's a traveler and there's this and there's a wizard on the moon, and it was pretty thin. Yeah.
Well, I think they said they wanted a kind of cohesive narrative to bring it all together, and they said it's not there yet. And that does worry me because, sure, we have some months, but that type of stuff takes a long time to come together. And if you don't already have a strong vision for what that is,
yeah,
I kind of question how much you can really get done, in a few months.
Yeah, or how, let me put it to you this way. Ignore the how much you can get done in a few months. Let's say it's all there. Ignoring the technical, insane difficulty of figuring out a way to magically hide all that story, which, by the way, any developer would tell you to try to be able to cut a cutscene out. That's one thing, but to be able to cut mid-scene in-game cutscenes is another thing.
Yeah.
And having a bunch of people playing it and data mining it and not finding that, it's like, that makes you go, you, there's
Occam's razor, the rule of simplicity says that it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I want to like it because I'm a big fan of some of those pictures, some of those websites that we were talking about, the YouTube channels who do like a lo-fi study music. Yeah. I like the look. I like the more, it's almost transparent like look to things where it's like a glassy gossamer. I sort of dig it in a picture. But when it gets to movement, I think contrast is super important, and contrast it's not that it doesn't exist in this game, but if you have a contrast of white and black, that's one thing. But if you contrast gray and then you're at gray again, you're like, uh-oh. And I feel like the off color that they chose and then contrasting those has shifted it to be almost a palette that reminds me of not nostalgia, but almost like a Life is Strange hit the nostalgia with its weird color palette. And this is trying to do the same thing by shifting Destiny's color. It's almost like a color wheel in Premiere. And they went, and maybe everything looks a little too soft. But
yeah, I saw it like very off-putting. And then I saw some stuff that I quite liked. And then boom, back to off-putting. It's like that meme, of the girl that she's like, no, maybe, no.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like she's kind of going from,
true.
You know, yes to no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an exciting one, man, because what I would love to see, I mean, the honest truth is I would just much rather love to see an expansion for Destiny, a la Division, even though Division's new DLC is not necessarily sizable. They're still doing DLC, which is pretty crazy. I would love to see Division 2 get more DLC and fix some of the stuff it's got, or Destiny, or a Destiny 3, because regardless of my issues with Destiny 2, I do like the gameplay. I like the world and I like the art. And I would love to see them build up on that, because I really do think that they have some of the best weapon and world artists I've seen. Like there's very few times when a gun drops in that game that I'm not questioning its use regardless of its functionality. It's the really pretty girlfriend that maybe doesn't have the same, doesn't have the same faculties, and you're like, well, but so
But
yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, so you don't know. And then Jimbo says Destiny 2 is getting a new expansion. Correct. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out is why this wasn't one of them. But we'll just have to see, man. It's gonna be interesting regardless. And I do feel like there's the possible chance that in today's current market of pick up and move on, that maybe it'll be lost. But hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's good and it's something that engages the market. What are your thoughts on extraction shooters as a whole? Like, give me like so. Let me say this. Let me say I find a fiction you love, The Expanse. You like The Expanse, right?
yeah.
Somehow there's there's an Expanse extraction shooter. You can run around with guns. You can be a Martian. You can be a human, a belter, like from Mars, a belter, blah blah blah. 3 tiers. You all can fly into ships, do stuff, do ship battles, then get on the ground, and you have to extract with some data, right? You have to extract with some data and leave. And so it's everything you want. Is an extraction shooter something that if that IP was there, would you jump into extraction shooters, or are they just not for you?
I keep hoping that one will pull me in, and I've tried a few. Hunt Showdown, I really liked, but I didn't like the setting. So that's where something like what you described would pull me in. I'll be interested in trying it out. I think there's something very tricky about the balance of the experience because you're losing your shit constantly. So you need some feeling of meta progression, right? And you have some things in those games that you carry over, but I found that it wasn't a ton, quite honestly. And I found that if your skill level was not such that you could perform pretty well, those games just weren't fun. And I didn't find a way to get the skill level to that magical threshold, at which it started being fun. So that's to say I kind of sucked at them and didn't find a good way to become good because there's, now a couple do have like offline and dummies and, stuff you can train on. So that's good. I want to see more of that. So I think that's important, a way for you to become better at the fundamentals of the game. And then some satisfactory meta progression that makes you feel like you're making progress overall, besides just your skill level.
Right.
And even though you don't, get to keep your stuff, right? If you die, there's still a feeling that over time you're making some progress or you're building towards something. That to me is what I find missing a bit.
So I think that you might actually have hit on something that unfortunately just may be the truth. When you look at extraction games niche within a niche, it is very possible that with the extraction game genre, because of how they do things, a Hunt Showdown being probably one of my favorites. I'm not a huge extraction, but that one in particular I like. But that's because the meta game was there. It was Western, which was weird. I'm not a Western fan, so that caused me to be more interested rather than less because it was a difference. So there's the difference engine at play there. The more differences, sometimes the more attracted I am to something. But I will say that with extraction, I do think that you hit on a point that at a certain moment in time, if you add so many options to let people who aren't great at this or who aren't great at this, who aren't great at this, do tertiary, secondary things, the extraction part just wisps away. And it becomes less than. The extraction becomes less of a deal and it becomes less important, which then less focus and people start playing weird. And then newbies play in a way that people who play a lot don't like, or people who play a lot play in a way that newbies can't understand because it's beyond the shooting. It's beyond whatever. But then extraction shooters notoriously are high death and quick death. So there's that on top of everything. But I do wonder if there's just a certain threshold of fans. It's just until somebody figures out another way to do it.
Right now, it's a pretty hardcore game genre.
Yeah.
You have to know a lot about the game to even play the game. If you look at Tarkov, I don't know if you've looked recently, like just Google or like look on YouTube, beginner guide to Tarkov. You're gonna find like 1 hour videos.
Oh,
And 90% of it is not even in the game itself, Carrick. It's all in
yeah.
the menus.
Yeah.
It's teaching you all this crap like before you can even play the game. So imagine the learning curve for someone completely new trying to
Right.
get into one of those games, right? It's very hard, very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
I
is
can
why
see
I was
that.
hoping that this one can do a good job of making it more accessible, more open.
Yeah. Carrick, what was your rating? Oh, this is $5 Love Making the Games. Carrick, what was your rating? Comment section was divided on a particular video, and I want to set the record straight. What was your rating? Oh, the rating was a get if you like all of that stuff. When it comes to extraction or expedition, sorry.
Expedition.
Yeah, not extraction. When it comes to Expedition, we'll talk about it next week more in depth. Expedition has some stuff that is notoriously noticeable later on. It reminds me a bit of Valhalla, where Valhalla felt more enjoyable at first and then starts to grind on you. Expedition, as somebody who just got it to review it in the last couple days, told me in Discord, they were like, yeah, it was fun. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, it was fun. And they're still playing it. And I was like, for review. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, I think I understand why you italicized was. But art-wise and stuff and voice, it's got the best music I've probably heard in years. But we'll talk about it next week for sure. I think that the music, if anything in that game, like music is so rare to work.
Mm-hmm.
So South of Midnight's music was so weird and eclectic and all these kind of things that while I still liked it, it wasn't my style of music. Nice thing about Expedition 33 is it's generally my style of music, and it's also absolutely incredible, which was like,
I agree.
that's a soundtrack where I would listen to it outside. I think that's one of the things is like, would you listen to a soundtrack outside of the game? Shouldn't matter. I'll just mention it after I talk about the game. But that one in particular, I would probably listen to later. Like, it's just one of those things where I like the music. Is there a soundtrack you listen to outside? Because I listen to Outcast, the original game. I listen to it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few that I go back to. Bastion had a really good one. I don't know if you knew that game.
I do know Bastion.
Transistor. So those games
Transistor.
generally had amazing. And Hades, those games. Is it Supermassive, the guys who make them?
It is Supermassive. Yeah, because they did Pyre as well.
Right. They have some amazing soundtracks. I go back to those. Persona 5 is fantastic. And Nier Automata is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some of the, and Final Fantasy stuff. It's great.
I would say also when it comes to like soundtracks that work in their environment, I thought Life is Strange was really good, even though a lot of it was commercial soundtracks. I think the choice, like a good DJ. If you listen to, KZ,
Are we talking about the original Life is Strange?
The original, yeah. When you hear people say like there's a radio station they like, or there's a Spotify creator that they like who creates DJ lists, there's this thing that works, whatever it may be, that's a through line. Though that game was commercial, in a lot of its music tracks, you could turn those off if you're streaming. Their music tracks were perfect. They were perfect choices.
Pretty much.
They fit what was said at any particular time. It just worked. I mean, and it's difficult to always nail that with soundtracks. Back to Marathon before we move on. Was there anything else to discuss for Marathon and extraction shooters?
No. My hope is that even if it's not a super hit, it at least opens the genre up a bit more, and we start to see more games come out that are trying, some iterations and ways of presenting this to people. Because right now you kind of have the big hitters and not a ton of, you have some side ones like GTFO, right?
Correct. I brought that up too. That is one that has got a niche of a niche audience, hardcore.
And it's a solid game technically.
Game.
Yeah. But again, pretty hardcore. You could argue that maybe Helldivers is a bit of an extraction. You don't really lose your stuff, do you? So it's not really extraction. You see the line starts to blur if you if you get a bit more general with your definition.
I do think you're right though that like GTFO in particular, there is that extra niche. So maybe there's a possibility of widening it. Maybe there is, but it fails. It falls apart because extraction is such a thing that the term is the name of the genre, right? Like, and there's always an extraction in those games, at least right now, where role-playing games have got a little lost. Like, what's a role-playing game? If I'm Geralt, is that a role-playing game? But I can't roll his stats. If I can roll your stats, is that a role-playing? The whole roguelite thing.
Yeah.
But as games come out in the genre to spread it wider, we'll get more and more in there that, we'll probably hit it. Marathon, if it doesn't, there'll probably be another one that tries. There'll probably be somebody that tries side characters that you can play, or tertiary that feels more like a team squad-based with extraction at the end, where extraction isn't really as big of a deal. Like, for example, Helldivers. When you look at Helldivers, I think Helldivers, you could say technically it's not explained, but it's got a lot, and yet at the same time it also has a lot of teammates who can do different things. So it's like, what about an extraction? Let's take Hunt Showdown for a second. What if there's a player? I'm not saying I would want this. I'm just trying to explain a side activity. But let's say there's a player who could suddenly bring in horses and you could all extract quicker, but that's their only job, is over here on the side breeding horses. That kind of stuff where they're not engaged in the shooting that you're talking about, which might push them out. I do see that in the future, somebody's going to make something like that, where it's a little less focused for some players if they choose to do it. I don't know what that would be, but I would like to see it. I think, in all honesty, as long as the genre has some successes, it grows. It grows regardless, like whether it be an indie dev who comes along, or a B-level company who comes along, or an idea that's a mode. Look how many you're playing a mode. You're playing a game that was a mode from another game, or a mod technically from another game. League of Legends was from, what was it? World of Warcraft? Isn't that where it was started the entire
from Warcraft 3?
Warcraft 3, I'm sorry. So you get my drift. So we don't know, and you could say, I'm sure somebody would know this better than me because I don't study extraction shooters too much, but I'm sure there's probably a game that had an extraction that was fun in a single player mode, maybe like Call of Duty, where you have to get to something, and somebody thought
The Division had one, right?
And so somebody's sitting there going, oh, you know what? Why don't we have that be the thing? The extraction part, that's sort of how it works. So it'll be fun to see. It'll be fun to see that, because I'm actually hoping to see more games in the extraction, where they're fun, but they're, I don't know, the penalizing element.
Extraction light.
Yeah, maybe? Right. Yeah. Because I don't need it, but when I do play and I try to tell somebody I want them to play Hunt, I hear this hesitation. And it's a skill-based hesitation, which is not shameful, but I think people can take it on as like, oh, I'm not very good. A cynical, honest truth is, a lot of humans don't jump into cynical, shameful feelings. A lot of people don't go, hey man, there's this game everybody else is good at that I'm going to jump in and make my entire team mad for a week because I don't know how to play it. It doesn't happen very often. So maybe we need some light on the side to make the other people take advantage and go, oh, there are some things we can do. Tarkov strikes me as one of those latte drinking, fedora wearing hipster games. I'm going to tell you what, you should play Tarkov then, because it's probably the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of the opposite. That is like so far beyond that even as somebody who doesn't play that game very much, that's just crazy. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh, you said I was cutting out? Sorry, we were having a little bit of an audio issue there. Hopefully I'm back. Romulus says there was a single-player extraction shooter that was made by an indie dev. I can't remember the name. Oh, well, that's not a lot of data. So if you can look that up, that would be appreciated. So we covered those. Let's see, we covered that. Next up, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a news story that came out that a Blade Runner game was canceled, and it was going to be made by the Until Dawn devs, and it was
Ooh,
Blade Runner.
nice.
Yeah. Did you
Damn.
watch the Blade Runner? Did you watch the Blade Runner anime?
Anime? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so there was a Blade Runner anime that came out. I was just really excited to see more Blade Runner stuff, and seems like it's just having difficulty. I don't know. But yeah, there was a Blade Runner game. I think it was Insider Gaming. Let me look. Yeah, so Blade Runner game canceled at Supermassive. It says an unannounced Blade Runner game that has been in development, Supermassive Games, was canceled. It was going to have story, philosophical themes of Blade Runner, and kinetic adventure gameplay. We don't know, how that would work. The paperwork that they got said it had a budget of $45 million, with $9 million of it being used for external performance capture and acting. $9 million.
Damn.
$9 million for performance capture and acting. Do you think that
That's
indicates there might have been an actor
right?
involved? Like maybe Ryan Gosling shows up? I'm just joking.
It could be, but the price for that stuff has gone up a lot. When you look at, for example, Horizon Forbidden West and the level of mocap that they had for like everything, it's an insane undertaking to do something like that. And they do like to have that level of fidelity in their games.
Supermassive is probably one of the few companies that I would suggest, or sorry, take that back, that I would appreciate and trust to handle Blade Runner storylines and morality and thought processes behind being a Blade Runner, the synths, all that pretty well. But the thing that I don't know about is they said action.
Yeah, right.
And admittedly, that caused me to go, wait,
that's different.
That's different. Yeah, like would it just be a shooting moment? And then it reminded me of Detroit Become Human, and I was like, so would it be like that? Where
is that action? Like,
it's got some action. I mean, I got the chick killed because I couldn't dodge a shotgun in the crazy guy's house. So right? Yeah, I don't know. I do trust them though. I would trust them. I would trust them to be able to do it. SBZ says, what if they hired Harrison Ford instead? Well, I believe the news stated that it would have been in a year or a time frame when there was a single Blade Runner left. Here we go. Here's the write-up if anybody's interested. Blade Runner, Time to Live was what it was called. Journey from the teeming undercity of New Zurich 2065 to the eerie remnants of the Forgotten World beyond. Under orders to retire the Rev, the mysterious and ruthless leader of an underground replicant network. You are betrayed and left for dead in a brutal, hostile environment. So dude, that makes me think it would have skewed on action. Oh, here we go. The game was set to be broken up into 4 gameplay pillars: stealth, combat, exploration, and investigation.
That's quite a lot.
That's quite a lot for them too, right?
Yeah.
That's not super.
It's a bit outside of their.
Yeah. That's outside
their.
Well,
it's a little bit like Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit like what was the game from Team Ninja that came out that was a little bit lackluster.
Medium. No, that was Team Ninja that was lackluster.
Yeah. So from the guys that did Neo, that was open world.
Rise of the Ronin
didn't do that well. Yeah, Rise of the Ronin.
Yeah.
They went a little bit outside of their wheelhouse on that one.
Yeah.
And kudos to them. They had a crack
and succeeded in some parts.
In some parts, I don't think it was a great open world game, but I mean, that's also growth, right? For some studios, they like try stuff outside, see like how far they can push out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. I like the idea of the companies doing that because we always hear that companies won't do it. And it's sort of a myth that exists in gaming where you could say the percentage has gone down, but there is still risk. You see it all the time where like every day I'll wake up and you'll see some jackass on the internet going, gamers have proven we want this or whatever. And I'm like, first, don't speak for all gamers. Like, dude, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense because I have gamers in here and gamers in our Discord who hentai is one of their favorite things. You know, that's what they're going to play. Got other people who are going to do extraction shooters down the niche to GTFO or whatever. If anybody has an example in chat of a even more, you know, discrete, difficult one. Dude, I hate that shit. And it's the same thing when they're like, oh, the only people who take risks are this group. The only people who don't are this group. It's like you can look and go, the percentage certainly is in the favor of saying it's less on one side.
Smaller project, less
easier.
risk.
Well, sure. Smaller project, less risk, but it doesn't always mean smaller company because we see big companies do smaller teams with risk. You know, it just depends on what they want to fund. I hate that shit. I hate that myth stuff because it closes off the conversation and you spend half of your time describing 8 games that prove that person wrong. And by the time you're done, you've wasted your 30 minutes that you were going to discuss, and you can't even discuss the initial situation because you have to fucking sit there and go, well, what about this? What about this? Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. So, but Supermassive, I think they could do it if they got the chops. I don't know why it was canceled though. You know, like maybe there was an issue there with the action. Maybe the issue was with the writing. Maybe the issue was with the IP. We'll never know. I mean, I'm not saying we'll never know. Maybe we will know. But the IP is probably expensive. I'm just guessing the IP has some money involved to pay for the IP. That would be my guess. Maybe they needed more money than they were able to allot when you put all that together. That mocap is expensive, though. $9 million.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting crazy, man.
Well, no, right, it is. But I'm taking that into account already and saying $9 million. That seems to skew towards it being a lot of talking and face work, which then skews away from the combat to a lot of quantity. Yeah. I would love it because I'm a big Blade Runner fan, Altered Carbon fan.
Would you think that stuff would get cheaper over time because like the tech becomes more accessible, or is it just one of those things that we are like you're paying for the actor's time, so you know?
So depending on where you go and what groups you use, we are definitely seeing companies come forward with tech that is much less expensive than it used to be. But games, if there is anything, I think we can all agree, somebody can argue with me, if there is any place where gaming at times seems to have a shameful feel towards itself, it's that we want to be movies. Look no further than the Game Awards wanting to be the Oscars. There is a general feeling of inadequacy as a group that pops up. Not saying every one of us feel inadequate, because I don't. I mean, and games are bigger than movies now. You know what I mean? I'm saying I don't feel that. But you can see the sense of it. So I could see them saying, we want to do motion capture at these big companies versus, by the way, because we looked at this back in the day, Amudski's looked into it. He's developing a game. We have multiple developers who have used lesser known mocap studios for a great deal less money and still actually had incredible results. It depends on your capture, how good you do. Do you want to be Naughty Dog and have 1 billion hours of it? Or are you tight in your writing? You know, who knows, right? It could be all over the place. 9 million just seemed like a lot, but it may not be. It seems like there might be some money in the actor there. Maybe the rental's expensive now. Maybe tariffs affected it. Maybe it was canceled because of tariffs. Maybe, you know, we don't know, right?
You still see like this massive equipment, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like it's becoming smaller or
no. Well, it is becoming smaller because the newest.
Is it?
Yeah. There was there was a GDC where they just showed some behind the scenes of mocap, and it was like just a jutting single baby camera, no longer the triple like Avatar. You're wearing what is that? What's the band who always wore the big helmets? The 2 DJs that did Legacy soundtrack, Tron Legacy soundtrack. Can't remember, but it's the two guys who wore the giant helmets all the time. That's the way it used to look. And look sometimes in the super highfalutin ones where you're trying to get Avatar levels of detail.
Yeah.
But they're also doing close-ups this close sometimes in Avatar, or, you know, and it's James Cameron who likes himself an expensive thing. So
yeah,
who knows? Packley says motion capture is beginning. Daft Punk, thanks, Kig. I don't know why I always forget. It's because they split up.
Oh, yeah,
there you go. Now I think of Daft and Punk over here. I don't know why, but when they split up, I was like, okay, they're no longer. I can't call them by the full name. I'm excited to see more data on Blade Runner as a canceled IP to see if somebody picks it up or somebody looks at it. I'm an Altered Carbon fan. Almost Human, one of my favorite TV shows with Carl Urban in it. Like, I would love to see
Great.
Judge Dredd, any of the cyberpunk future. I mean, you could say Judge Dredd has cyberpunk elements, but it's definitely a dystopian. I mean, it's weird.
Yeah.
But I would love to see more worlds like that. So I was sad to hear it got canceled. And the number of people in our chat who didn't know it was a thing anyway were sort of devastated when the first news report was, oh, the thing that you wanted got canceled, and you weren't even able to show support because nobody knew.
Yeah. It's gone.
And it's there. Oh, nope, just gone.
Oh, it's gone.
Like the chick who's like, let's see.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to read that. That's another one of those people speaking out. Damn. Here on Business, $5 super chat. Thanks for the Friday vibes, Jonna and ACG. Yeah, appreciate it. Zaxby says John Daft broke up with John Punk. Okay. Zaxby. Come on, man. You got to bring up your game there. I'm just joking. Let's see. What else do we got for that one? Game would feature a 10 to 12 hour single player story per the documents. That's pretty much in line with Until Dawn. Did you know there's an Until Dawn movie?
Is there?
Yeah. I saw some reviews for it. I don't know if it's out, but I saw some reviews. They were sort of middling, but overall, still something I'll probably watch. It doesn't follow the Until Dawn, the main story that was from the game. It's sort of its own little side thing. But who cares, man? I'm still into that kind of stuff.
Looks like it was released this year.
Oh, it was released. Damn. Okay. I haven't got a chance to see it. Anybody in chat seen Until Dawn, the movie? Speaking of that, in chat, let's go. What movies are you guys watching? What TV shows are you guys watching? Suggest to me a TV show that isn't Breaking Bad, or what are the other ones that always get suggested?
Wait, are you going to tell me you don't like Breaking Bad? Is that?
I can't watch it enough to tell you, but I have seen the first season. I just wasn't asked enough to continue. But I didn't dislike it.
Okay.
I just didn't get drawn back to it versus other stuff. That's why I was saying other than that, because I know that one's going to be on everybody's list, and other than Game of Thrones.
Sure.
Yeah. Other than Better Call Saul. See, I should have said it. I should have said other than anything related to Breaking Bad or. I think a lot of people would probably hear me and go, "Oh, he would like Breaking Bad." So, like, it makes sense that people suggest.
You just have to get to the third season, Carrick. Then you'll love it.
It's nothing big, man. You just got to put 20 hours into it. That's when it gets good. That's when you start to understand what's going on.
Oh.
Now, let's jump to Oblivion Remastered for a second. So, we talked about this a couple months ago when the news dropped that the mod had come out, and that somebody had figured out a way to basically take Creative Engine stuff and put it in Unreal. And my question at the time was that somebody who learned it on their own? How performant would it be? Or was it somebody who saw some documents? Or was it like a side thing? Like, because it was something I had always wondered if it would be possible, because you'd have sort of an engine on top of an engine in a way, where you take the assets they need to be there from the old game and you put it in the new game. So some of the data for Oblivion Remastered has sort of come out. And what I thought was interesting about this, dude, is there's a lot of the files from the old game attached with a generic JSON file that then attaches to the new game asset to replace it. So in a way, it almost feels like a mod running in Unreal, just like that guy had made to show what Oblivion or Skyrim or whatever would look like in Unreal, but from a professional company. And it takes the data and replaces it, right, with the data in the packages from the new game on top of the other engine. So you do at times, technically, I think you could argue it's got both engines running, which is pretty crazy. You could say one is mini running so that it can keep up and inject the data that it needs to inject. But some of the other stuff was super interesting. When adding new content to the game, the JSON data for this content would be inserted. The JSON structures for many game objects include additional values that don't exist in the original game. The reason why I think that is, the reason why I'm guessing that is because Unreal requires some extra data. And so somebody had to go into the assets and like make sure that the data that wasn't used in the creation engine at the time is attached to these objects so that Unreal can do whatever it needs to do. The new Unreal Engine version of textures, models, particles, and animation files appear to still be linked to the original version. So basically calling to those. But the LOD, listen, this is why I'm, you know me, I'm a tech nerd. So like this excited me. The level of detail for the game is completely new, controlled by Unreal. So even though it's grabbing all that stuff, the reason why the level of detail is beyond, I mean, I would say mods did a great job for Skyrim and Oblivion for pushing out LOD. It's a completely different system that they must have seen the way Creation Engine did it, and they were like, you know what? Matter of fact, back then was that Gamebryo before it changed names. But anyway, long story. That I thought was awesome. The game also uses several scripting languages across all the different systems, including updated version of OBS script, Unreal Engine code, and Unreal Engine blueprints, meaning they're actually using the blueprints you can use. You know, if you were going to make a game or a mod, they actually are using that. To me is like one of the coolest parts, is that even just one, but the idea that something in a blueprint made enough sense, even if they altered it, because you can add code to a blueprint. But I thought that was exciting. I was like, dude, it's really cool when an engine maker is like, here's some stuff, the basic templates, and the maker of the port is like, you know what? That actually works really well. We're going to use that. Then it says on the Xbox Game Pass, the game came with a lot of extra debug data. This is where I feel like this is File Nexus who's given some of this data. I feel like they shouldn't have said this, just because I'm worried they'll take it out. But it says the Xbox Game Pass version of the game has a lot of extra debug data that's helping with the efforts to reverse engineer the whole thing. So basically, it's given them a lot of this data. Here's the thing. Playing this, I was surprised how much they've changed that actually works quite well. They've changed some of this way the skills work. They've added some functionality to characters in Oblivion. It still feels old. There's no getting around that. It, like when you play it and you're fighting, you're like, ooh, you know, does it feel its age? Maybe not at times. But the idea that this is running multiple things is exciting to me, because the rumor and the leak originally was that Fallout was coming as well. And we talked about this a little last week, but now with more data on this, that's exciting to me, because if they were able, and one of the reasons why I want to bring it back to blueprints again, is the same thing with a company. They do something, that code works, they have it for the next game, right? So all these things they've done to get it out at a certain time means they decide, okay, maybe we could augment it, maybe we could do something, but we're not gonna. But we know that in the next game, if we ever do this, the idea of a Fallout with improved shooting, right? With improved level of detail. In Unreal. But here's the big thing. In Oblivion and in Skyrim, I would argue that 99.9% of areas are enterable. You can go into them. Two problems existed with the Fallout series. One, many of them, especially in any abandoned cities, you could not go into. Mods added that. I think it wasn't open cities, but there was one that was like literally called all buildings enterable, I think was what it was called. And somebody had gone and made the buildings, you could open them, basic insides were in there, and it was more depth to the game, right? A deeper game. GTA 5 is a good example of a game where 99% of it you can't go into. You can't go into a lot of the buildings. I don't want you to be normally, because that's too big of a game. You'd get lost in a business office somewhere. You know, it would be sort of a ridiculous kind of simulation. But with Fallout 3 and 4, to see those be changed, altered, updated, fixes that we've needed for years, bugs that existed even in the patched versions. I mean, I think it was, wasn't it Fallout 3 that still had Microsoft Windows Live for years, and you had to basically crack the game to get it playable. And now it's on consoles with the backwards compat. And then you got New Vegas as well. So you technically have 3 games in the Fallout series that could, I'm not saying I don't want a Fallout, what would it be? 5. But if you look at Elder Scrolls and how long that's going to take, and they stated it was after that, and then another Starfield will be after that. The idea of this side company taking on, I think they've done a good enough job, despite some issues with performance that was variable for a lot of people. I would love to see it, dude. I would love to see that. I think that that would be incredible because some of the changes that have existed in those, or some of the problems that have existed in those games, if you could shore up that shooting a little bit, Fallout is such a unique feel. And let's just be honest here, the TV shows, it's a perfect, if you're going to do it, now's the time to do it, right?
Yeah.
Now's in the next year or 2 years, it would be great
Yeah.
to see yourself having one of the Fallouts be. I just think that would be incredibly exciting. I'm very excited to see if they do that. And I think that overall, most likely, maybe they didn't want to go straight ahead until they got some response, but I think the response for Oblivion has been, at least from what I can tell, pretty much incredible. I mean, it looks like
has been insane.
to Oblivion has been super high. And I just can't wait to see. Like Ben says, just because part 2, $10 super chat. Thank you, Ben. Sorry, I had to reload YouTube there for a second. But
I think what you said there is fascinating because the way they described it in the video was that they remade everything from scratch in Unreal 5, which didn't sound realistic to me when you picture someone
from a methodology,
down,
it doesn't, right?
From a methodology standpoint, let me look at this character model, this
so exciting
N of 10,000 characters in the game, and let me recreate each and every one of them.
Right.
That's not a scalable thing to do. And so the way you described it makes so much more sense. Like in a way, they've developed a toolkit or like a systematic way to go about taking, at least as a foundation, the original stuff, whether it's the meshes or like, so some basic stuff, and then adding
really anything,
a lot of the extra detail
to really anything to speed up that development, right? And like you said,
exactly.
the methodology, if you're going to go and you're going to repeat a game, remake a game or a code, anybody you talk to will still go look at old code. And, is there something there that's working? How does it work? How does it work? Like, how does it work? That's a big question. You go in there and you look and you're like, hey, okay, so we can remake everything. Or we can take some of these. I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but they recorded a bunch of new voice lines, and they recorded a joke in the voice line that had to do with the original game. And so it's not like this is shortcutting. I want to make sure that people understand this is actually, at least from the developers I've talked to, because I've talked to 3, one who worked on the actual original game, and then people who've worked on Unreal. And I'm like, so where are we? Effort versus resources. Like, where are we with this? And it was just sort of widely like, that is super smart. Like, that is, if that is the way to do it, if you have a system that's fast enough to inject data from the other engine and replace it with your own, and you can get that performance, which for the most part they do, but then also inject things like new audio and change up some of the quests. Supposedly there's 1 or 2 things with a quest that are slightly different. I think there's a new spell. I haven't got a chance to play a bunch of the game. I've only played like 3-4 hours of it. Especially because I did the review and then I jumped into the May videos, and I just haven't got a chance to jump in. But from what I've played of it, that, Fallout 3 or 4 would still feel old, but they're going to feel newer because they're newer than that. And then also, I personally think up close melee is really hard to fix. And it's still a bit clunky, but the clunkiness that existed in Fallout, I don't personally believe is probably as hard to fix as the up close animations and everything of how Oblivion probably was. Somebody, Jonas was saying many will remaster Elder Scrolls Daggerfall. Yeah, I would say Elder Scrolls Daggerfall, in particular, Daggerfall, the way it does things would be very, very exciting to me to see what they would do in Daggerfall, because we already have Daggerfall Unity. So it's possible to do this stuff, and it was years ago. So, I would love to see it.
Yeah, man. I'm hoping that they've developed this kind of toolkit.
That's exactly what I was saying.
They can take this, like you're saying, and apply it, whether it's this studio. Which would make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been a hit. I think their work has. I haven't seen anybody complain about the the result. Like I've seen performance complaints, which is fair, but in terms of like the end result of their conversion, I think across the board I've heard that it's faithful to the original while also being a
More current.
massive,
Yeah.
Uplift.
Yeah, dude, some of the lighting effects when you like
it's
so funny.
And the foliage and stuff.
Foliage
pretty damn good.
I was playing it just for a couple hours, and even in those couple hours, my brain was not doing the. You know me, I'm not much for nostalgia, so it's like if I feel like nostalgia's hitting, right, I'll just install the old game so I can tell myself what's true or what's not. Going out and seeing the lighting effects and the real time lighting and stuff, I was like, damn. Okay, that is genuinely a really big improvement. It's really nice to see. And I, say what you want about Unreal, because I know some people don't like Unreal Engine. If this was Unity, I would be saying the same thing. If this was CryEngine or one of their 55 splinters, I would be saying the same thing. It's the idea of what they're doing that excites me, to bring it forward without it being The Last of Us 55, which is actually just The Last of Us 2 repackaged again and again and again. Mm-hmm. And I understand that the first one was definitely updated. But what I'm talking about is when you see something like this, you're like, okay, some real work went into to fix some of the things, to adjust the world, to make it fit with the current ideas generally of gameplay, but still make it feel like Oblivion, it still does. It still genuinely feels like Oblivion. Also, you can make some fucking horror shows in that game. My guy is messed up looking. I love the ability to, dude, I swear to God, lately in game creators, other than, some companies still allow it, but there's a lot of slider control in games, including their own game, including Starfield. The control, the ability to make a monster. I want to go in there and I want to make a character that
you
is the monster. You
want to take the chin to like 200.
Or to 0, which my guy's got a full-on English royalty chin. It's a George Washington chin, actually, but it's just like nothing. And he's a huge fat head. It's so fun to be able, and by the way, you can make a handsome one too. I'm talking about, this is the way I do it. I love that. I love that they've done this kind of stuff. I've loved that they've cleaned up audio, which is so often, it's just often forgotten. It's obvious that some of it's the same and they've probably cleaned it and all that stuff. It's obvious that some of it's new. They got other voice actors. They got the same voice actors to do a lot of the voice. I love that. It's like, people's voices are going to change. So there's a couple times where I'm like, there was one time where I was talking to a character and I swear to God, it was the both character versions. I could be wrong on this because it only hit for a second, but I swear it was where like one line was their young voice 15 years ago, 16, 17 years ago when they probably recorded it. And then the other voice was like last week, right? All of our voices changes. It wasn't like they went through puberty or anything, but
yeah, that would be off-putting.
Yeah. But now let's talk about some bad stuff. So, okay, this is hard to describe. I like the special effects on spells, but they still feel lean in their effect. Like they're built on the old effect, but there's only so much they can do on some of them. So the lightning effect, I got one of the staves with a head on it, and I cast the lightning spell. Was it improved? Yes. Did it look current? No, it looked super lean. It looked like it needed 2 or 3 more effects. I don't know another way to describe it.
Like
I wasn't mad about it. Yeah. Maybe. Or just something about the arcs felt almost drawn in, like they were a template. Like when you go and you buy a free Premiere template, you can try to pass it off as new. But unless you
can buy like...
Yeah, you can buy
yellow.
Yeah, right. It's like, here's your Sith lightning. That looks like Sith lightning. That it looks like you bought that very thing and just sort of put it in there. Other than that, I think overall from what I've played, I was quite impressed. Loading was much faster. It was weird to go into every building and have it load. And I don't mean like Starfield where you go into a major building and it loads, and some of them don't load. A lot do in Starfield, for sure. But Oblivion, for some reason, was more noticeable. Maybe it's because they're villages and they all have front-facing doors. That's the other thing that you notice. This is going to sound so weird, but Oblivion, their cities are built like a suburb that's being sold from a giant conglomerate to all new people. And where the front are all perfectly, like, their fences are a certain way and their doors all face a certain way. There's something cathedral-like in the building of Oblivion cities, where it feels like everything, it's like doors, almost like you're loading a cell in an old first-person game where you moved on tiles. It's like two doors, two doors, two doors. That would be the only thing that I noticed. That was like immediately 100% there. The other thing is the cities still require loading, which I thought by this point they would have figured a way around it, but most likely there's too much internally that's going on with the engine that you still have to load the cities, or at least the cities I've gone to. If anybody's found a city that was loaded in the last game version of this, but is now free to walk into, I would like to know. That could probably fuck up scripts for NPCs and stuff too. I mean, that kind of stuff is pretty normal. But yeah, are you going to continue playing it?
Yeah, I will. It will take a little bit of time to come back to it because I'm mostly going to do expeditions now.
Oh, you mean to get back to go back and play it? Yeah. Yeah, I think with all these games, like it is sad because Expedition sort of got tanked in its, well, it's not sad. I mean, these are big games. They're coming out.
It's just hard to juggle.
It's hard to juggle. And there's a lot of games out there coming out. And so the idea of releasing against this is pretty rough. And, Bethesda chooses their release dates. I don't believe it's Microsoft, because Bethesda and Microsoft both made it pretty clear they're in charge of all publishing. So,
and I guess there isn't that much overlap between Oblivion and Expeditions, but
time and money, but not gameplay wise. No, I agree. Yeah,
but at the same time, I want to play both, and I know many people who want to play both, so there's some overlap.
Yeah. Northern Berserker 13CA super chat. Thank you very much for the super chats, peeps. Oblivion is jaw-dropping. Hours vanish noticeably fast. That's very cool. Feels like also there's been a lot of really good games. I don't know, once I do the review, I haven't gone and looked at OpenCritic for a lot of the games I've reviewed, but Commandos came out. I don't know how that reviewed. I think it reviewed middling, though. I think somebody actually said that in Discord. But lately, there's been a lot of really good games reviewed, too. So, like, if you're a fan of Oblivion, you can go and play that. If you're a fan of Expedition, you can go and play that. Commandos came out. There's 3 or 4 games I didn't get a chance to review. There's been a lot of games. And May, I do want to talk about the May video. The May video would have been an hour long if I had wanted it to be an hour long. But it kill after a while, my brain dies, and I'm like, these are the games. Otherwise, it's just a list of games in May. You can go find that on releases.com. Like, you don't need me to tell you. But the games that I found on there, dude, May is packed. May is packed with some crazy shit. Did you see Deliver at Any Cost, or Deliver?
Yeah.
What was that?
The isometric
delivery
car
delivery. The hell? I always mess up the name because it's so generic. Deliver at Any Cost? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I forgot it instantly. But dude, the gameplay looked.
Oh my god, that looked insane. Yeah, and just looked like one of those games that you would be playing and laughing the entire time. Because, like I said in the video, it is quite literally just get from point A to B with item C any way humanly possible. And the crap,
go through buildings,
the anarchy in that game is just Delivered at Any Cost. Thank you. The anarchy in that is absolutely insane. It looks so fun. Fun matters. For example, like if you look at Expedition, what's fun at the start may not be fun at the end. When you look at Delivered at Any Cost, what may be fun for a little bit may not continue to be fun. But their price point's pretty good. It's $26. It looks like it might be one of those games that's just pure fun. They do have a story, and they're actually explaining that the story is a big part of the game. But I got to admit, yeah, that's what I said. I was like, okay, well, that's sort of an add-on to this.
That's an added bonus.
You're delivering a Godzilla-sized fucking Marlin. Like, what? I don't know if I need a story.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's such a unique angle for a car game, like the isometric.
Yeah,
with a car game, it's kind of.
It reminds me of the old GTAs that were top down, but like obviously isometric. But the sense of chaos that existed reminded me of that. And
because the camera, the perspective it's almost like you're looking at the car as the car is coming towards you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way the camera looked like, a little bit like those. Which one is the old game? Is it Crash Bandicoot, the one where you have the camera.
Oh my God! And sometimes you're running towards yourself.
You're running towards yourself. Yeah, those always trip me up.
Lost Souls aside, also, I believe that was the one somebody told me this morning was delayed, unfortunately. There were 2 or 3 I covered, and one of these was delayed, but I'll pretend it wasn't this one for just a second. Dude, Lost Souls aside, surprised the shit out of me when I was looking at the trailers and reading up on it. That game looks... I mean, it doesn't look as good as a Final Fantasy or anything. It doesn't have that level of just debris and
polish
stuff
and everything. Yeah.
Oh my God, some of the powers looked impressive as shit in that.
Yeah.
And
by the way, I take issue with the not wanting to bang blue aliens. That's a direct affront against what's her name from Mass Effect?
That is what I aimed it at. Talia.
Okay.
Or Tali. Yeah.
No, Tali was the masked one.
Oh, I thought that's who I mean. Who are you talking about?
No, I was talking about.
Oh, you're talking about
the
super soft,
the full
soft
blue lady.
The super soft. Yeah. Who became? Oh, I almost spoiled a DLC. I'm not going to spoil the DLC. I mean, that game's old,
man.
but yeah. Well, I also made a joke about sisters stuck in fucking dryers too.
Oh,
but I mean, when you look at like these games, I do like that there's just such an eclectic mix because Doom was on there. Are you
selecting when you make these videos? Are you like selecting the ones that you are likely to be interested in, or is it pretty much a more indiscriminate list?
No. Oh, you mean is it indiscriminate and getting on the video? No. There has to be something that causes me to be like, that is a thing. Because otherwise
that's what comes across, I think. It's usually because you usually sound excited about the games you're covering. It's
excited
not like,
on those games.
I guess this is coming out,
No, like, dude, that would kill my soul to make a video where I was like, and today's game is, and
like this farming game is,
that to me, especially when you look at this list, that's why I was saying there were like 9 other things. There was a lot of honorable mentions. The Tressett brothers also have Cyber Knights. I think they were trying to tell me it was coming out in May, but when I looked, I'm pretty sure it said June 1st. I don't know if that changed between the tweet or if they thought I was doing June's because it was so late this month that I had been doing it. They might have thought that I was doing the month after next. But dude, I got to tell you, man, there were just so many. It was like, and even the DLC for Everspace 2 looked fucking incredible. Everspace 2, by the way, is a game that I feel, it's one of the very few games in the world I feel criminally I haven't played a bunch of after the initial time when they've added so much. And I like that genre of game. And I like that game. That's one of the few that I've got it installed and I get ready to click it and then we're all talking and I'm like, I'll get back to it. And I never open it up. But the DLC looks phenomenal. They do a really good job with their DLC. Lippy says, does it matter when Cyber Knights comes out? I don't think so because Cyber Knights is already out as far as I know. They were just telling me about the full release. I would say, especially when you look at May in particular with Doom, and there's another couple AAAs, there just seems to be a really good mix of all kinds of crazy shit. First-person shooters, drivers, maybe not any first-person drivers games, but obviously Deliver and some of those that were in there. It was honestly one of the more fun lists I've ever made because as I continued to look through it, I had to just curb ones, which is always, I don't know, that always feels good. I mean, Elden Ring, dude, I said, like, can you believe we're talking about May and I just now mentioned Elden Ring? That's nuts to me. That shows how busy May is that I just remembered that Elden Ring's on that list. Nothing against Elden Ring. I'm saying there were so many that it was like, holy crap, this looks awesome. That looks awesome. And not only looks, but when I investigate them to see if they're worth it, they have the kind of gameplay I want. For example, I'm telling you right now, Spray Paint Simulator, every time I play Power Wash Simulator, the first thought in my mind every time is, I wish I could be the person that caused the problem for the power washer. I want to be the guy who makes it messy. And that's not this. It's not Debris Simulator, but it's close enough. It's like the idea to go and to, buy new nozzles and do that cycle that the simulator games are good at. I cannot wait for that. I mean, it's obviously, I think you would say it probably isn't as feature packed as a lot of the other games that we're talking about on this list, but still, like it just looks, to me, it looks awesome. And then Blades of Fire. So, dude, I don't know if you got that far. Did you get as far as Blades of Fire?
No.
Okay. So Blades of Fire is it's a game that's like a mix of Devil May Cry and Kingdoms of Amalur.
Oh, you mean in your video?
In my video. Okay.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. Yeah,
okay, so that game in particular looks definitely B level, right? Looks a little lower, just being honest. But what they're talking about is the ability to make everything about your sword. It's not just, it's girth, and as they said in Friends, why girth? But you get to do all that, and it actually, there's a mini game for creating the sword, which if you're like me and you hated Kingdom Come 2 making horseshoes in that fucking game, I hope it's better than that. It has to be better than that. But it is funny in that game that he started forging a weapon with the coolest looking weapon that's in all the footage, which is his forge hammer. It looks like a Walmart millionaire. Like, it looks incredible. And he's hammering things. I'm like, why don't you just take the fucking awesome hammer with you? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But what's cool about their Dark Souls methodology they do here is the only thing you lose is the weapon. And you can go and get it. So you can do a soul run, but you're going to, or a body run, but you're going to get the weapon. So if you made like a +10 Sword of Orifice creating, that thing is awesome. You love it. Yeah. You're like, dude, I want this weapon. You can go back and get it. Yeah. Or you can turn around and, if you got the materials while you were investigating and where you died, you can make a new weapon. Tons of weapons, tons of enchantments. It does look, it doesn't have the look of, it's got more of a look of an Elix or something like that, but it just looks awesome. And then there's Roadcraft, man. Like,
dude,
I'm telling you, that game
insanely cool, man.
And especially if you understand that Roadcraft is not Mud Runners or Snow. It's not those games. It's its own thing, like Expeditions, but it takes some of the Snow Runner and Mud Runner parts and puts them into the different cars, and then puts you in charge of the entire business with up to 3 friends. My preview of that, like, people were like, oh, you sound really excited. I was. Like, that was fun. There's times where you're just like, this is actually fun. Because I didn't know, because Expeditions I liked less than the other two. I liked it. There were parts I liked.
Me too. I agree.
But if you went into it expecting Mud Runner or something like that, you're going to be like, ooh, this is, you have to sort of curb your expectations because the company is making something different. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a new game. In the same way Marathon is a new game. You have to sort of be like, okay, here's what I see, but once we get hands-on, sort of take it in for what it is. Roadcraft was a blast. That preview, and I don't know why, but they left it on for like 2 weeks, and you can bet your sweet ass I spent more time in that preview. I was like, damn, they sort of got it going on. I spent 3 hours trying to get a single recycle receptacle into a recycling bin that I had dropped behind a building. And I was like parking cars, I used a crane to pick up my car, to move the car over to the other side of a building that I couldn't get to so that I could get the item and then pick it back up. But then, of course, I flipped the crane because I forgot to put the support. That's the kind of shit that I would play with you for like fucking 10
Problem
hours.
solving.
Yeah.
And that's that idea of the co-op. Seems so cool because all of a sudden you're undertaking these projects and problem solving with people. So you're like, okay, you got the crane. So, you do the crane stuff. You follow me. Yeah. I'll be the scout. You pull me out of the creek I drive into on accident when I The other thing is, I mean, it's weird because this is the name of the fucking title, but Roadcraft, you can make your own roads and you can have the AI do it. And it was a little finicky, admittedly, but right at the end of the official preview, but afterwards I got it to work better. But during that official preview, I got the AI to make a road, and it was pretty goddamn sweet to be able to command the AI and say, I want a road from here to here, and I move the rocks, and they put the sand down. What do? They do sand, then they do the asphalt, then the roller comes by and rolls it, and now you can drive in that area. And I was just like, oh, dude. I mean, dude, the thought that, just to name drop one person from Discord, Omar, he's a driver, right? In real life.
He wants that game bad.
He wants that game. So the thought of like, imagine we're in a lobby playing together. I'm doing, my thing. And then I come over, check out what Omar's been doing. He's been laying, not pipe, but he's been laying this road. And it's like, wow, that's awesome. That now opens up for me to do A and B.
I
Really cool.
And honestly, we already did it in SnowRunner and stuff where you would work with somebody else to push you or pull you out of a. So the idea that it's like, okay, we're building on that. Again, it's not Expeditions, it's not SnowRunner, MudRunner. They've taken some of that away. Like, for example, I got some people who were very unhappy that there isn't gas. You're basically not controlling gas in this game. You don't have to worry about gas. And I was like, dude, in the story, you were hired by the government and given the supplies so that you won't need to worry about those. That's not what the game's about. It's not about that kind of minutia. There's still the driving minutia. There's still low and high and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely moved to the side so that they can add in new stuff, and it's moved some stuff to the side. But as long as you know that and the general driving mechanics you like, and then you add on the construction and the co-op, definitely, a different game, but one that I think for the most part would be highly enjoyable. Lippy says Pipe Layer Simulator. Someone has to make that. There's probably a hentai game called that by now. And then the next up was The Precinct. Dude, can I let my dog out real quick? And did you see that? Do you know enough to talk about The Precinct? If you don't, we can talk through The Precinct.
I'm pulling it up now because some of these are blending together.
So The Precinct is the one where you're the rookie cop whose dad died, and you literally drive around and run people's license. So it's basically a more gritty, over-the-top police simulator game. So there's more shootouts than there would normally be, and you're a rookie who must have the worst luck ever because everything happens around you. But you're doing things like watching somebody speed and deciding, do you want to pull them over, run their driver's license? They can be drunk. They can try to drive away. Then you get involved in the gangs and trying to stop the gangs. And it's all about your dad passing away and you trying to like take the overall, position of them and sort of returning the family name in some way. Romulus, $5 super chat. Hope you get more money than 75 cents from this. Thanks for the weekly entertainment. I think he was in our chat last night when we were talking about how the companies do the 50%. We take 50%, then the other company takes 50, and then they give 50 to the person. But I think Precinct looks awesome, man. I mean, graphically,
it's got that kind of XCOM.
It does
look.
It does
a little bit, although it's different, right? It's all kind of real time from what I saw.
Let these guys out. Continue.
Go for it. So it's like free aiming to a certain extent, and you got people taking cover on both sides, similar to XCOM, and ability usage and stuff like that, but a bit more kind of grounded. I think it's interesting. I really want to see how that free aiming system is going to pan out in reality, and especially on controller, that kind of looks a little iffy maybe, but I like the aesthetic and the idea of it. I don't know if we've had any games doing this type of free aiming. Maybe Desperados did it and I've forgotten, but yeah, it looks quite unique, and I like that there's a bit of a story around it that also makes it nice to have like breaks between the combat where you're going
a little bit.
Ascent,
there's maybe
there's some of that.
Okay. Do you need to go and take care of your project that you were telling me about? You said you had to go for a couple minutes, maybe?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good. I might need to pee. That's the only project.
Well, that was the project I was talking about. I was trying to be, here I am trying to be couth. I'm like, oh, do you need to take care of that project? And you're like, well, I got to drain the main vein, I got to thicken the lizard. Anyway, Spetsu, PLN $29.99. You guys rule. On Man, Precinct is my second most anticipated game after Systems Shock 2 Remaster. God damn. That's another game. Thanks for the super chat. Very much appreciate it. And I agree. Like, the Precinct, the only thing I'm worried about is the FPS is a little questionable that I've seen. Another super chat, a small bit for Johnny's parents so they can spice things up a bit. Yeah. After last weekend, those ball gags are unusable again. They're not safe for human use, so I appreciate that extra money. SBZ says lies. Johnny never pees. He just pees in a little porta potty while we talk. Can't. Oh God! No reason. All of a sudden, as we're talking, you get that kid peeing in the pool look,
just
where you're like
suspiciously like angle,
where you do the, and then maybe a shiver, where you're like, oh. So anyway, The Precinct and Deliver are two games that just look awesome. Then Revenge of the Savage Planet And I believe you were a fan of Savage Planet. Is that
I did
correct?
like the first one. Yeah, I did like it.
They changed the first person. It's so funny because one of my main complaints was the first person, and they changed it to third. And the developers were like, we heard everybody. We definitely understand why people were thinking that third person might be better. It allows for just a much wider field of view for the player, especially with a player who's going to be fighting off creatures, scanning creatures, doing all kinds of crazy shit. Third person, switching's fine too, but I like that they switched it. It looks awesome graphically. And the entire thing is about you going 100 years in the future and during cryosleep to go to the planet that you're supposed to investigate, I believe, or you're in cryosleep, one of the two. You're woke up and you're fired right away. And it's all about you getting revenge on the corporation that fires you, the overarching corporation. So I'm excited for that. I think May's just packed, guys. Like lie, May is it's because dude,
I think the third person adds so much to that game when I looked at the footage, because they also have a really unique design to the bodies and stuff.
Oh yeah, like the animation that they
look
do.
Unique.
Yeah, they look unique. They look like Gumby
I liked it.
Yeah, it's cool. And then Midnight Walk, man, the claymation horror movie. My voice is coming through your giant fucking huge headphones, I think.
Yeah,
just a little bit. The Midnight Walk is the claymation one, and that one to me might be the most artistically impressive game on the list. That game, dude. I admit I'm a sucker for claymation. First game, I talked about it in the video, I think, but Omicrog was one of the first games I covered with Cadiz when we started the channel. And claymation to me, there's something about it because you know it's real, and then it's put in the game. I double up on that love. Like it's sort of got this cool thing, but they rarely work out. That's the honest truth. Claymation, they don't always work out because of the tech putting it together, responsiveness, and then the gameplay choice they've done. But I got to tell you, there were times in this when they switched to the first person that it reminded me of High on Life because of the first person occasional action parts. But it's all about you and another, I believe they're undead characters that go out for a midnight walk, which is like a tradition of theirs. And there's a bunch of supernatural kind of stuff. The cool thing about it is the adventures, from what I got from all of their documentation, is that they're stories. They're like stories of the world. And so your adventure is sort of a story of the world. I don't know if it's told later, and at the end of the game, you'll find out that it was all, it was all like in the past or what have you. People are saying it reminds them of Celebrity Deathmatch. That's absolutely correct. Yeah. Or Clay Fighter. There's another one. But Tim Burton, I'm not even I don't know. Are you a Tim Burton fan? Like Nightmare Before Christmas or
some stuff? It's been hit or miss. That for sure I really liked. Yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas.
Best one, I thought. I thought of, I'm not a huge, I don't know what it is. Like, I like some of his stuff. Did Tim Burton direct Beetlejuice?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously Beetlejuice, like I would feel really bad for not mentioning that. Obviously one of my favorite things of all time, but generally the look exceeds whatever I get from the show or movie from him. Generally, that's the way it's been. This looks like it's got the actual story stuff. And it's VR, by the way.
Ooh.
Yep. I don't know how it's going to run, but it just looks fantastic. And then the other game, Deck of Haunts. Dude, I will occasionally play a card game, but they're difficult for me to get into. I watched some previews of this. I read up on all their stuff. This game is like, it's like a card dream come true. It's like haunted houses, Supernatural, the TV show, elder gods, all mixed together. So basically what happens is every turn, every day, you get cards. You can build rooms to your house, your haunted house, and every day bad guys, who are actually good guys, show up at the house trying to get in. Every type of bad guy has different skills. Normal investigators, normal people, police officers, they'll have different things they try to do. Cultists will try to get to the heart of your house, and the heart of your house is a heart. So it's a little like State of Decay 2, where you had the big beating hearts, you had to destroy them. You're trying to keep this thing alive. You get to pick cards that are either building new rooms or powers, like killing them, making the room super cold, teleporting to random places, they have health and sanity. So you get to fuck them up mentally and they'll die, or you get to fuck them up physically and they'll die. And you pay points to use these cards. But it's got this look to it that some games try to go overboard, and then some games don't do enough. And I would say with Deck of Haunts, it's one of the few games I can say that I've seen where I almost understood the entire way it was going to, like, what you would need to look at and pay attention to and be able to play right away. Like, it was just one of those games that I look at and I'm like, I understand what the card costs. I understand what that card will do. I understand the draw, how that works. It looks awesome, man. And I'm not a card. I'm just not a, I don't know about you. I'm like,
I like card games.
Do you? Because like Balatro, sure. I just couldn't, I had a really hard time. I wasn't going to review it.
Balatro, Slay the Spire.
Slay the Spire, I guess I would like. Yeah. Oh, Monster Train, I adored.
Yeah. Which the new one is coming too, I think in May, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think somebody was asking me if I saw it, and I didn't see it on any of my lists, and I looked. It just didn't show up on any of my lists.
But this looks interesting. The combination of like
Deck of
the house with the cards,
and driving people insane by like teleporting them around or making scary sounds or making bleeding, all the classics from like the Supernatural series or The Shining. That's why I was joking in the review. I don't know why everybody's coming there. It's like you filled out a Tinder profile and you're like, I like bleeding walls and I like creaky floorboard. I have no clue why everybody thinks this is the most impressive haunted house.
Some
they show up.
Craigslist situation.
Where you're like, meet me at 5 behind the Walmart and we'll pleasure each other. I don't know what's going on in the game, but I know that what I saw looked awesome. And as a card deck person who it requires a good one for me to jump into. I'm sure I would have liked Balatro more if I had the time to play it too. I just, at the time.
Yeah, it takes a bit.
And I think Balatro sways more towards poker, which I would like for different reasons than, let's say, a Magic the Gathering style or this.
Yeah.
And I loved building on new house parts. I love the idea of having a house that gets bigger. Do you remember the old Winston house? The story of the Winston house, which is the lady who built the house and just kept adding rooms. And the story was, this is a true story, but the story is that she built all these rooms to trap the ghosts because her, I believe it was her husband created the rifle. Was it Remington? Somebody can correct me on which rifle this is, but there was this belief that all the people who died from it were coming back as ghosts. She was crazy. So she built this mansion with more and more rooms that made no sense. And that's sort of the way my house is going to be.
Wow.
I can already tell you. Yeah. Remington House? Maybe it's Remington House. Winchester. Okay. Winchester. Yeah, the Winchester House. You should look up that. It's pretty cool. Also interesting, the Supernatural brothers I think their last name's Winchester. But
yeah.
And then Out of Sight. So I mentioned Out of Sight not because some people probably got confused, because at the very end of it, I said, I've listed this. It may not be for me, but it was a project in it was a student project in Stockholm that's got a bunch of awards and had a pretty, it's definitely seems to be pretty polished. The reason why I actually brought this up is because I love the idea of how it works with the camera. So you play a blind girl, a young girl. And I was joking in the thing saying, okay, that would be the quickest game ever. If you just start it and you're dead. But, which would be awesome, by the way. But in this one, you see through the teddy bear's eyes. And this happens to be weirdly timely because I just saw the Black Mirror where the person puts the other person's brain inside of the toy bear at the very end. But you can see through the bear, and wherever you put the bear down, you now play in technically second person, but really third person, where the camera view is whatever the bear can see, and you can move the girl. Then when you pick her up, it's first person. You have it in your, you're holding it in your arms and you can see whatever, and you're trying to escape this mansion. I just thought the game looked awesome from how it would switch things up. My big worry is that a horror game or any kind of game that's about escape is a little like Extraction. It's a niche and a niche and a niche. So it's not only horror, it's a blind girl horror. So some actions are going to be reduced, but I do love the idea of the camera view changing. I think that's awesome. And it's also VR. So that were 2 games that were coming out with VR. So I think that'll be awesome too. And then
that's cool.
And then Void Sales. I don't know if you've seen anything on Void Sales or not.
Checking it out now.
So Void Sales is another Cthulhu's
Oh yeah.
mix, but basically it's like Treasure Island, the cartoon, mixed with pirates and with, Spelljammer from D&D. But basically you take your sailing ship that can sail through the air and space. You have like a sort of a normal move kind of thing. And then when you get to a place that you can interact with, you go to an actual control scheme where you're flying it around and you get in broadside battles, blah, blah, blah. But as you travel, cosmic gods are consistently muttering in the background. I've always wondered why cosmic gods don't like humans, by the way. You would think there'd be a cosmic god that was like, hey, these guys are pretty fucking cool. I'm going to help them out. But it seems like in every single story, the cosmic gods are like, I'm going to ruin this bitch.
Nope. Fuck humans. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck humans. It would be nice if one of them was on our side. But anyway, and you have to dodge, sanity issues for every turn you make. And then at some point, most likely there'll probably be a roguelike element, I assume. I don't quite know on that part.
And it had also like an overworld view, right?
Yeah,
like
so
from above?
From above. Have you ever played a Netmarble game on mobile? The thousands of Marvel games that are on mobile that are by Netmarble, they usually have a game where you're moving around from block to block, and then you have an encounter.
Oh, yeah.
You have an encounter at that place. That's how Void Sales works. Except here, the encounters are not only fate and sanity. If you stop in like a village, you'll see the village, and you'll fly around in a third-person view behind the sailing ship. So already better than Skull and Bones. I'm just joking. That's not fair to Skull and Bones. I have no clue if it'd be better. But yeah, that one looks just awesome to me, man. And then the last one I listed, was the DLC for Everspace 2, which again, it's just so cool to see all of these, man. Powder Cake said, Carrick, did you see the latest Wallace and Gromit? I did not, unfortunately. I'll check it out, though. Big fan of that kind of stuff.
Did we talk about Spray Paint Simulator?
I did. I talked about it earlier when I said I wanted to be the opposite of the Power Wash Simulator. But it's not necessarily that. But yeah. But I love the idea of Spray Paint Simulator because what I was saying was the cycle of gameplay. If it's anything like the simulator games, it's probably gonna... Dude, there's something about doing that job that you just wouldn't do in real life. I don't want to get painter's lung. I don't want to accidentally inhale a bunch of fumes. I spray painted all my life, probably the cause of my mutated DNA. Wouldn't want to pass it on to anybody. I love it, though. I love that kind... Because also, they show him painting the side of a car, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Like putting some sweet ass, 1980s friggin' fire flames on the side of a car is right up my alley. I don't know how much you're going to be able to do. What I was saying is I'm a little nervous how much they'll be because a lot of the simulator games either full, there's a bunch, or they're pretty lean. And you can't, it's very difficult to tell if they're going to move forward. Many do. Simulator genre is obviously exploding. There's no genre that I can think off the top of my head that is exploding faster than simulator. And it's probably because, dude, there was a YouTube simulator game. YouTuber. Because you can put all these things into it, it's almost limitless in a weird way because, so Truck Simulator, which you've played, I've played, you could technically just change that to truck management company simulator. And now you have a generically different game, like Roadcraft has changed over, but even more so, where your viewpoint is different. There's so much stuff in the simulators. It's exciting to me because I remember you and I talked about this 5-6 years ago. I was like, I don't know why no one's talking about Playway. Like, I could not figure out why every game that was exploding on Steam was a Playway simulator game. It was nuts. They were so prolific. I felt like every week. And only now are we starting to see, like, people go, oh, shit, the simulator genre is huge. And I know a lot of people, these will be some of their first games in that. Because simulator scares people. You see simulator, let's be honest.
It's like, oh, no.
Yeah, stock market simulator, you're like, well, that doesn't sound fun. But if your job was to screw over people in the stock market, suddenly it becomes, a different thing. I think
since Power Wash Simulator, they've done a good job converting the brand of simulator from super niche, like hardcore nerds,
to all core. We'll change the genre name. All core.
Mainstream.
Yeah.
It's fun, like for everybody.
Dude, Thief Simulator is one of the most in-depth games I think I've ever played, and I could see people looking at it and being like, what is this game? And what it is awesome. I mean, it is legitimately... I think it's easy to think they're not full games. Maybe because at one point maybe they weren't, but you got Mechanic Simulator that had been out for
Yeah,
5 years,
and
6 years.
some come out in early access, so they're not like full games for a long time.
Mm.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
true. Yeah,
they're
true.
great.
And you know me, I'm not a like if it's an early access one, that's what I was worried about with
Yeah,
this one is, but I think it looked like it was full, but yeah, I'm definitely not into because you just never know. I don't want to, you don't want to dive in and be like, I
right.
like what I'm playing, and suddenly it's, it's gone. But I would say the more prolific ones seem to be full game. I mean, Drug Dealer Simulator did well. What was the one?
Well, we saw a lot of the card selling ones, like the Pokemon card or
Mhm.
like the
Collectible card,
game card
digital collectible
selling
card game one.
shop.
Mhm.
Yeah, there were a couple of those, a
Oh,
couple flavors.
those. Yeah, there were.
And
Yeah.
they're where you have a store and you
Mhm.
sell, with like Pokemon stuff or cards. And those are, I think, both of them early access. And you have a few other flavors too, like Supermarket Simulator
Mhm.
and a few others.
Johnny Blue Jeans says Mango's playing World Economy Simulator. He's one of the best. One of the best what? Schedule 1. That was the one I was going to say. There's some heat between Schedule 1 and Drug
I
Dealer
heard.
Simulator. Yeah, but
Yeah, heard a lot about it.
yeah, it definitely is not my favorite. Most likely because of the graphics and the way it's presented, but it definitely caught on, and it caught on because let's be honest, it's about drugs, which is one thing, and then it's got it's got goofy, deep gameplay, which matters. I mean, look at Power Wash, look at Car Mechanic Simulator. Are you going to understand everything about a car? No, you will not. But will you understand way more about cars after a couple games? You absolutely will.
Like
even
PC
if it's just general
building
location.
simulator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
You learn, okay, what are the main parts? More or less, where do they go?
Yeah. I mean, and then you can go deeper to like Truck Simulator, which, those get pretty in depth.
Oh, yeah.
Truck Simulator games. But yeah, dude, Maze Pack, man. It's insane. Wizard of Smoke says, definitely want that spray paint simulator. Will they combine that and the drug dealer sim and include huffing? Yeah. Yeah, well, so see, that's what we've talked about before is like the simulator games we talked about with the Extraction. I wish there were more companies that merged things in some way, like where you have the side. Pacific Drive is my best example. If they did a multiplayer where everybody else was doing jobs out and about, and one person played a mechanic who was constantly juggling on the CB, saying, "We need this kind of item," that
working on parts.
Honestly, that would make me scream like a schoolgirl because I feel like Pacific Drive is incredible, but at some point it does get highly repetitive. And the idea of saying, okay, Johnny and Reg and Omar, you guys are the drivers today. I'll be the mechanic and I'm going to call you. And you guys are out doing stuff on your own, but also listening for me to say, hey, man, we need this to repair the next car. That is... God damn, I wish they would do that. God damn.
That would be awesome.
Dude.
Like maybe you even have to communicate objectives.
Exactly.
Like maybe we have to like walk you in and tell you like, hey, go to this point of interest. This is where.
Yeah, because things might change or whatever, and where you're like, oh,
yeah,
I've got there's an anomaly in this other place. Reg, you're in that spot. Can you go check this anomaly because it might have this? Dude, you could do so much. I mean, I think I'm making it sound like they're not doing it on purpose. It's not. I'm just. That's my. I want it.
This
really
would be a whole other thing, but yeah, this type of stuff, super cool.
Speaking of a whole other thing, we'll revert back to it for a second. Doom: Dark Ages.
Right. I mean, they showed some new gameplay. What are you thinking so far? So they had a reveal, right? The Cosmic Realm.
Cosmic Realm.
First reveal.
I mean, I'm just really curious. I'm really curious because if you look at 2016, like you and I've talked about, if you look at 2016 and you look at Eternal, you could boil it down to a couple minor changes and the major platforming grapple change. That's a change that you're like, okay, this is a pretty big change. I mean, it is, like I said in the video, I truly believe it is really ballsy to say our games are known for, lickety split timing and consistent moving, spraying and praying, all that kind of stuff. and our tagline is going to be stand and fight. They did show some speed, though. There are some trailers, there is some footage that does show what I would consider to be somewhat Doom speed. However, I don't know about the rebound mechanic and how much it's going to... What I mean by I don't know, it doesn't mean I think it's going to be bad. I'm just saying it makes me wonder how it's going to work, because I think only some colored shots are the bounce and some you can't. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of switches. They've also stated that the accessibility options they've added, so you can slow down the bullets to go 1 mile an hour. You can speed them up. You know me, like I'm more of an Unreal 1990 fan, so I love the idea of cranking those to like super fast, and so that's probably all I'll do. I do like that, because they're making it clear, hey, if you're seeing this particular thing, it's because we're showing you a particular thing, but you'll be able to change those. They also stated the one thing we worried about when we first saw this launch. They did a video not purely, but mostly about this. Just because they're letting you adjust all these doesn't mean they won't have an easy, medium, difficult level structure that you can choose that is generic and will be well-tuned. Because they were saying, don't worry if you think we're not going to tune it, we're just going to let you do it. I don't think ever that was going to be the case. But I did worry that the case might be that none of them felt right, and because of the gameplay. But if you can pick easy, medium, hard, that's cool, because one of those will be the game proper, sort of like.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
That's what always worries me, is that, I want something to be the intended level of challenge.
Right.
That they've kind of balanced around.
The shared experience, I guess.
Yes. And then from there, you can say, well, this feels maybe too much or too little. And then I love being able to tune those things, like in Jedi Survivor or
gotcha.
Fallen Order, where you could say, actually normal is maybe a bit too easy now. Let me crank up the damage up, maybe,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People are asking if Gordon's doing the music. No, he is not. He is not. But the music sounded good to me. I didn't mind the music at all.
Absolutely.
Gordon's music's obviously, I think, traditionally almost a trope with the last two Doom games, because of all the issues. But this music I heard, at least, I really liked what I heard. It didn't sound out of place. It didn't sound better or worse. It sounded like almost pretty much exactly what I was, I guess, hoping the music would sound like, without it going too far astray. So far, I've been happy with what I heard from the music. We'll just have to see.
Yeah.
I like Mick Gordon's stuff. I like how experimental he is, but in no way, shape, or form do I, and I know Austin Wintory personally, he's awesome, but I don't, if he chose to not do the sequel of one of the games, like Journey, if Journey 3 came, I don't know, is there 2 Journeys or only one? I can't remember how many Journeys.
One, I think.
So if he wasn't doing the music and it was still good, I'd be like, hey, this guy, complimented number one with his music. That's what I'm sort of hoping from this game, is that they compliment it. It seems good. I mean, seems to fit.
I think music is great so far. I'm still worried about the speed, because what we see in most of the footage is like walking around, or maybe like fast walking, whatever you want to call it, but it's not sprinting. So that's very different. So it's like you're kind of like strafing.
Right.
So, you're facing an enemy and you're going slowly, like side to side. And do you have gap closes and dashes and stuff? Yes, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But
just not to say
you're worried that the generic
terrible,
movement might not.
But I'm worried, that the moment to moment is a lot about like slow moving and looking at these colored particles or projectiles rather. But I'm open to it, and I think the enemy designs look phenomenal. Like some of the
guns,
outer world, like the almost Elder God type designs, like cosmic horror stuff, is awesome.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think of the weapon that you throw out as a ball and chain? I wasn't quite See, here's the problem. This happened with Indy. This happened with Indy, dude. We saw the whip, and I mean, I think universally everybody was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then you play it, and you're like, it's still a little janky, but you're like, okay, I get that. When I saw this, I liked generically what I saw, but at the same time, it did appear to require and by the way, I could be missing this in footage, so people can correct me. I felt like it required the player to stand in place when it was shooting out, meaning maybe there was some strafe, but it almost looked like you had to keep it on aim or something before it hit. I don't know. There was something about that.
So it looks like there is a charge up that you're doing where it charges up,
right,
and then it it goes out. And I love the destruction on the enemies where they're like falling apart, and like their chest is just open and destroyed. That's really cool. And also outside of that weapon, you also have is it called a Morning Star? Like where you have
Morning Star is a stick with a ball on a chain? Yep. Yeah, that's Morning Star. Mace is flaying.
So on a chain.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have the flail, which is the chain ball. In D&D or some fantasy games, they'll change the names. So you might have seen those you might have seen mace used for all of them. Might have seen flail
gotcha.
Used for all
yeah, so it's on a chain. I don't know if it's on a stick or not, but you do see like, so you have your main weapon and then you can whip people with your spiky ball too, which is cool.
Whip people with that spiky ball. Yeah. I also did I don't know why I liked it, but I love the gun that chews up skulls to shoot bone shards at people.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's
a concept.
That's some edgy ass 18-year-old, like I'm too cool for school. I like it though. To me, that's exactly why I like Doom.
Yeah.
Just because
I think that is, some of the essence of Doom.
Absolutely.
It's that over the top.
Yeah. We'll just have to see, man. I've liked all of them. So, and I think I was questioning, Eternal's been a long time, but I think back when they were showing a lot of platforming, I questioned that, and it turned out it definitely wasn't perfect, but I actually really did like a lot of Eternal, and I've returned to it once or twice. I do generically like Eternal, but I like 2016 as well. I think overall I'll probably like this one, and we'll just see how it all comes together.
I think so.
Yeah. I just don't want the Marauder thing. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I have nightmares of that fucking character. But
yeah, mixed feelings about one Marauder is great, but if now all your enemies are
Marauder
some
style
type of Marauder, oh,
yeah, we'll have to see. I'm excited for it. I think overall, what I've seen still looks like they know, and they do. They know what they're doing. There's a mech in it too, a massive mech. So, I mean, any game with a mech is a little like a game with a jetpack. It's going to get some bonuses from me.
It's getting points for that for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely getting points for jetpacks or mechs. Next up, I wanted to talk about Days Gone Remastered. So that released today. You going to play it?
I will not. I mean, I'm looking at the footage. I'm not seeing a lot of difference. Now, granted, it's been a while since I played the original, but are we seeing a lot of uplift here?
Not really. I'm seeing a change to some of the way the hordes work and the size and stuff, and there's a new mode, but
okay,
I probably won't jump into it either. As a foundation of the original game, or the foundation of the original game was solid enough gameplay wise once it got patched, but I don't think it was solid enough for me to return to a couple added things overall.
And I think that's a game that you have one solid playthrough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and you're pretty happy. I don't really see returning to it too much as a thing.
Are you going to return to Ghost of Tsushima?
No, but I'm excited for the new one. Ghost of Yotei, is it?
Ghost of Tsushima 2. I'm just gonna fuck up the name every time. Ghost of Sushi 2. I don't know what to think of that. I think overall, the DLC adjusted some of the gameplay patterns that bothered me in the original game. So I think they probably built that into the new one. Sounds like they've made some adjustments. I'm pretty excited for that one overall. But I mean, I don't know. That's October, isn't it?
It is October 2nd.
Yeah. I would rather have seen a Days Gone 2 than a remaster. Nothing against the remaster, but if they were going to do another one, just because I didn't think Days Gone was a great game on release, doesn't mean I would want them to not release a second one. Like, not with that character, obviously, for particular reasons, but,
Right. Yeah.
Speaking
Yeah.
of,
No, I
go
like
ahead.
that idea. I think a lot of these remasters are a little bit unneeded, but it's
Particularly
not like
from
we're losing
Sony,
anything.
I
But
think
yeah,
you're getting, yeah, we're not. You know, they're
yeah,
tertiary companies doing this. It's just, you know, money for a,
yeah.
it's like a
Because some people
added
say,
sport.
well, does this mean we're not getting a third game? You know, a new game that they would make? Is this like a cost of opportunity?
Right.
But it doesn't really work that way, right? I think
No.
often, as you said, it's different companies or outsourced.
You should have seen the chat because I was talking about, I can't remember. It might have been Oblivion. No. It was that EA is doing Switch 2 games. And some people in there were saying that typical spiel of like, oh, it takes away from this and the lower platform will take away from this. And I didn't go back to the tweet for a while, and went back, and there were developers in there, multiple developers who were like killing the myths, which was really nice. I was just like, I'm just going to let them go because they were like, listen, I've worked, you know, like what you are saying or what you're thinking, that is like not what occurs. It's this is done over here, you know. It was actually really nice because some of those myths, like, again, waste time. So it was nice to see people.
Yeah, it
step
just gets
forward and
propagated, right?
yeah, it's one of those things where you're just like, ugh. Do we know if Yotei is going to be timed exclusive or is it going to be on PC right away? Oh, PC will be 6 months to a year later, I'm assuming, right? I would assume.
Yeah, the only thing we know is it's coming to PS5 on October 2nd. We don't know
Yeah.
anything else. But no other platforms announced.
Analysts are reporting that it looks like from the initial numbers, Switch 2 is already to the moon, like a crypto coin. Did you pre-ordered?
I did.
So I tried to pre-order yesterday, the day it went live. Wasn't able to. There wasn't much there that I wanted, but I am excited because every single dev we talked to, even the ones in our chat, there was somebody yesterday who's like, we have like 6 games prepping for, you know,
That's
new
awesome.
and old.
Yeah.
It's very cool to see because that'll be, you know, it'll be really cool for those people who want that kind of system where they can play it docked, but then grab it and do whatever they're doing, go on a family trip, and they've got it with them, whatever. But I mean, I still think the price is pretty high for obviously the price is high for the games, but I think I think mostly the thing that bothers me is I just wish there were a couple more games day one from them, because as not a Mario Kart fan overall, they're really, you know, when I look at the price of the system, I'm like, what will I get plus a game? And I try to find a game, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's really nothing, you know.
Yeah.
Because I think
in a
Donkey
weird
Kong's
way,
many months
it's probably
afterwards.
the games that have already come out.
That's exactly what happened.
A bigger draw.
That's exactly what happened. Is I was like, oh, well, this game might be updated or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's not really what I want from a new system, regardless.
Yeah, but you like just checking out the hardware, right? Just the gear.
I mean, I do, but for $500, I don't.
Yeah.
And if my checking out the gear requires me to play Mario, which I don't have a lot of friends, if any, other than you guys, occasional guys in the Discord who like Mario, it's very hard to check out the hardware. Also, checking out the hardware usually involves more games. Like, obviously, this is before your time, but it used to be that you would get about 3 premier titles with every console release. You get like a platformer, a fighter, and a racer. That was sort of the Gennaro way of doing things.
Covering all bases.
You cover the primary bases. I think other than Tekken, even though it's got issues, fighting games have sort of, you know, they're not really as big as they used to be. And
died down a bit.
Kombat or an Injustice. Yeah, just overall, I'm not, obviously that's generic. Racers have sort of gone the way of the Forzas and stuff. And Mario, obviously, is a racer. I should say that. But platformer is where they're missing. I do think it would be great because I don't think Donkey Kong's day and date. If I remember right. Yeah. Wish it was, man, because Donkey Kong's one of the few that really got me to go, oh, that would be fun. Donkey Kong feels like
I think Mario Kart might surprise you.
I've never surprised me before. What I'm
I've
saying
been
is
seeing a
Mario
lot of
Kart is
gameplay, man. and
Oh no, I mean it looks good for a Mario
It
Kart,
looks
but if
really good.
Mario Kart as a whole doesn't really entice you to play long term, I don't know
Yeah,
if this
yeah,
one would
fair.
make me magically go, I've changed my mind on Mario Karts. Mario Kart as
I
a
think
whole.
especially if we can get some random Discord groups to play races, it can be really awesome.
The idea of paying $500 and some to then have to have friends
Okay.
to play is so alien
Yeah.
to me. Like, I don't know. I just
And the proposition of like it's a maybe on
yeah,
top
it's a
of a
maybe.
maybe. It's
a-
like
yeah,
getting the voice call.
that's a lot of money to pay for a
Get-
maybe. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It is. I'm happy to see somebody come out because there are some other games that we know. I mean, you can just generically look and go, okay, that seems like that'll come out for the Switch too.
Metroid Prime doesn't that excite you? The new one?
Never been a big Metroid fan. So Nintendo Rabbids, that was amazing to me. The Mario game 64 was amazing. Odyssey I really enjoyed. Wonder I enjoyed. I enjoyed the Zelda games, the 2 new ones. I did not enjoy the older Zeldas. I wasn't a huge, especially the old Zeldas. I love the idea. I think Donkey Kong looks great. That looks up my alley. But to me, Nintendo hasn't always been just their first party. It's like, okay, here's a first party that is amazing, like Rabbids or whatever. But then there's these other games that come out that I'm like, whoa, did I disappear? Can you still see me?
Just disappeared for me. Yeah, I freaked out.
Dude, we're playing Deck of Haunts, or the game I was talking about. How scary was that? Like, did that affect your sanity right there? All right, let me see if I can get this fixed. But anyway, yeah, we'll just have to see. I mean, I'm still, it did disconnect. I'm still pretty excited for it regardless. But the other thing we were asked about is Remedy's co-op shooter, the Firebreak game. Are you interested in that?
I haven't seen a ton about it. Fire Brigade.
It's called Firebreak.
Oh yeah, Firebreak game. I think that got announced some time ago, didn't it?
It did.
Was it recent?
Yeah, no, it did. It's coming out next month, I think. Does that game interest you? I mean, I know you liked Alan Wake. I think you liked Control, right?
Definitely. Yeah. I think as a concept, it has a lot of potential because it's weird as hell. It's going to be very unique because of all the control-like destruction and manipulation you have and stuff. It looks to be quite different. At least it's not recognizable from the standpoint of your classic Left 4 Dead enemy classes. You know, you have your tall guy, and then you have like the fast one that grabs you, right? You always have sort of the same classes. And this looks very different.
I think it'll look good overall. We'll just have to see, but I'm sort of a stan for those guys. So
I don't think they've ever done anything multiplayer, right?
Multiplayer?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'm gonna switch to the other camera. I don't think for the most part we've seen anything. I realized what's going on with this camera because it died out. It's the phone is overheating.
Oh.
Because I'm using the phone as the webcam, and it gets too it gets too juicy.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want a juicy phone. That's all I'm saying. What questions we got in Discord while I'm hooking this up?
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Pull it out. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I'll stop.
Not like that. Okay, here we go. So we had this question from I am John Galt. As a reviewer, how do you feel about games shadow dropping? Do you feel like it can rob you of opportunities to create content?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Let me get this. I think that overall I do not like games. There we go. Whoop. That work?
Yeah, because we talked about one aspect of this, which is, hey, will your game do better if you shadow drop it, or if
Right.
you have PR cycles and stuff. I like the question because it's a bit different. It's more like, hey, from your perspective, how do you view even making content for something that shadow drops? Because you no longer have the ability to prepare something, right?
You mean personally, like for me? I personally don't care about a shadow dropped game. Um, I will just play it. I'm gonna turn this back on here. I will just play the shadow dropped game generically and not worry about it too much. I think shadow dropped games are I think shadow dropped games, if they're not Oblivion, is pretty tough. I think Oblivion's
Mm.
doing well because number one, there were rumors, and number two, it was like it's its own thing. But yeah, dude, come on.
So,
Shadow dropping's hard because you have to
for
like. How
example,
are you gonna get PR for it? Go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, I was gonna ask, like, for Oblivion, for example, are you considering making a review on it, even though it's gonna be,
For Oblivion? No.
yeah, like,
Mm-mm. No, because Shadow Drop doesn't let you plan. So I can't even
right.
plan to do what I mean, if I've agreed to do a video for somebody else, or if I have a plan for a video, we're doing the podcast, what am I going to do? Am I going to cancel for that I mean, I could cancel for that company. You'll get rumors.
Yeah.
Did I should say it, did I know that it was coming? Yes. But
Oh, you did? Damn.
yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Okay.
But did I know what that entailed? No. So you don't even
Uh,
know if you see the pictures, right? People were complaining about the
sure.
pictures. They were like, "Oh, it's lacking color, blah blah blah." So you're like, "Okay, so what am I going to need to do? I'm going to need to play 60 to 80 hours of Oblivion minimum to review it, which would take away from we're starting the next month here soon. There's about 4 games coming out in the first week of May that I've already agreed to cover in some way. So it's like you break your contract. Well, I would break my contract. Some people probably are going to throw some. I mean, I'm just assuming. I am assuming that when Oblivion dropped, somebody dropped some kind of impressions or review for that game within 6 hours. That's my guess. I haven't looked. But I would guess that there were clickbait videos where people were pretending to give the idea of Oblivion's overall quality within 6 hours. That would be my guess. Now, this is Oblivion, which is a multiple hundred to do everything and explore, and if you wanted, and easily 40 to 60 if you're going to mainline and then do some side stuff. I am absolutely sure that there were videos already out within. I'll give benefit of the doubt. I'll say 8 hours, where people were like, "This is great" or "This is terrible," without any dude. And do you know why this matters, Johnny? Later crashes, like what happened with Stephanie Starling. They got the torch bug at the very end of the game.
Yeah.
And they could not continue. To me, that is a game-killing bug, and it needs to be reported as game-killing bug. We don't know if that exists. So I would need to fully play it. So the idea of releasing a video and being like, it is a masterpiece. I could do an impressions video, but I don't know after 8 hours. That'd be tough. Maybe 20.
I mean, it's also going to be so far from release.
Oh, that doesn't bother me.
Play the whole game right now, right?
Yeah, that would eat up time that I want to cover other stuff. Yeah, that's just Shadow Drops. I mean, Hi-Fi Rush I probably could have covered because it was short game. You can cover that.
Yeah,
yeah. It depends on the time too. If there's nothing planned, but like I have a bunch of stuff planned. I'm trying to teach we were talking about this. I taught myself a bunch of Linux to do the server. I'm taking the master class on graphic design. Like there's other stuff I want to do, and I'm not going to cancel that because somebody shadow drops their game. That's their choice, and I salute them. But anything other than Oblivion, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough.
Yeah. I'm glad they're doing well.
Dude, for sure. Doing very well.
The decision didn't hurt them.
Yeah,
I think, in fact, it worked well for them. As you said, they have enough hype around the IP that just the drop itself was.
Yep. Doing great. What else we got?
This one from Master Paz. With Sony owning part of From Software, who would you like to see play Patches in the inevitable Dark Souls live-action movie? Do you remember Patches?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
The Patches is a guy that betrays you in almost every Dark Souls, there's some form of this character where he's like promising to kind of like help you out or whatever, and then he throws you in a ditch or he traps you
What
in a
game?
cell with enemies. Dark Souls
1?
and Demon Souls and stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
Patches,
see,
like a bald guy
that's been ages since I played those. I
Yeah.
had no recollection of that.
and it's kind of a small thing, but it's like a fun little side character that betrays you in all of those games.
Oh, gotcha.
So it is a bald guy, so maybe I'll throw my hat in the mix. I'll play Patches. But yeah, I mean, in general, I don't think Dark Souls is very ripe for action movie material.
Me neither. And I want to read this super chat I missed. I apologize. Camera had gone down. Mark Long, $2 super chat. Hello and have a good weekend. Thank you very much. Hope you do as well. Hope you're able to stick around.
By the way, if your surname is Long, how awesome is that? I'm just saying, it's kind of an awesome
That is true.
surname.
That is true. It's better than like Mark super short and lacking girth, which would be a unique surname anyway, but I'm just saying.
Johnny Short.
Johnny Short
Unfortunate.
Stack. Short Stack. Anyway, continue. Oh, yeah, Patches was in the Elden Ring. Okay, because I was like, but I don't remember Patches kidnapping me in Elden Ring.
It was just a different name, but same idea. I think it was even a bald
Was it a
guy
different name?
as well. It might have even been the same.
Why. Okay.
Yeah.
What's up, Jesus? Patches was a spider with a human head in Bloodborne. Okay, so they change it up. Love Making the Game says, what if GTA, or he doesn't say what if, but GTA Shadow drops on May 1st. That would be amazing.
Dude. If GTA Shadow drops, like, I don't know.
That would be hilarious if it Shadow dropped.
The world will turn asunder.
What else we got?
This one from Knucklehead. Carrick, just wondering a little about how NDAs work in the industry. Do they typically extend to after a game console launch? And if so, how long after? What's the weirdest stipulation you've had with an NDA that you're able to talk about, of course? Hope you guys have a great weekend.
He said game console, but I'm assuming he just means game.
It's like game/console.
Yeah. Most NDAs directly state that the NDA and all content can't be talked about. But there are many companies that, for whatever reason, don't do that. Also, there can be the most I've ever seen in a game, and I'm not going to say who this is, but you can. I think in the past I've definitely bitched enough that if you watched every podcast and did a database search, you'd be able to figure out who I'm talking about. There was one that must have had 8 NDAs for different groups. It was a fucking mess. It was a goddamned mess. It was so many people were confused by the NDAs because somebody will accidentally leak it to a Redditor who will post it on like Leaks and Rumors. And then everybody who doesn't have that will panic that they're too early or panic that they're too late. It was a fucking tragedy, man. It was like, and all it did was harm the content that you're trying to get out. I don't mind a streaming embargo, or a review embargo or a preview embargo. This was a review embargo that had 6 levels. And you got, I don't know how they chose, and it's not done any, I mean, it's like almost never done that confusing. Sometimes you'll have 2 where I've seen journalists go first and I've seen YouTubers go first. I have seen that. But overall, I would say that, yeah, most companies, if they say anything about the NDA itself, they'll say you can't talk about it. But a lot of indie companies and stuff, they won't get to that part. They'll just be like, or even AA, and even some AAA will just be like, all the content in this embargo, or all the content in this like contract or whatever is embargoed until the review date, meaning you can talk about it. A lot of companies are very open.
And the stuff where you can't show parts of the game, is that tricky?
Yeah, that sucks. It sucks. I'm not going to spoil a game, but I love to like, if you want to show somebody a hint that you beat it, there's hints I can drop verbally by discussing something that you would only see at the end or whatever. You know, there's ways around it, but sometimes you want to show somebody a cool move. That's by far the worst, Johnny. So listen, dude, if you're playing a game that's 40 hours long, sure, it's possible. You might be the best gamer ever, and you might somehow understand how to do every single thing at the starting, but usually your worst footage is going to be the first couple chapters. Gears of War, God of War, whatever.
Space Marine, 100%.
Yeah,
man.
we're not all YouTuber commenters who somehow understand how to play everything in a Dark Souls game that's brand new. Moment one, well, this is how you do this, because they read it on the fucking internet. I would love to be able to show that kind of stuff, because there's some cool moves that you might get, or you might understand something. You're like, okay, I would love to show this, and they'll restrict stories. It's not very often. There was one that was highly confusing that I had, though, that I still to this day don't even, I mean, I did it right. Oh, whoops, I got to remove that from my, there we go. Let me get you back in. There's one that I didn't think I did right for a while, because, and I even checked with the PR company, because it was so confusing. It was like, don't show this until this, but don't show after this. Make sure this skin isn't shown. If you see this character on the street, make sure not to show him. And I was like,
damn.
Yeah. A lot of times that'll be, most YouTubers have editors now. So they'll pass that to the editor, and they'll pay the editor to stream the footage or screen the footage, which would suck as an editor to go through all that. But I do that myself. So at least for now. What else we got?
This one from Zaxby. If there was a Metroid movie, which female actor would you like to see star as Samus? Samus. That's
a good question. So which? Okay.
He goes on to say, by the way, she will have very minimal lines. So my pick would be Brie Larson. She's kind of like a Samus vibe as Captain Marvel, in my opinion. Also, she's kind of turbo hot. Have a great podcast. Hope to join voice chat soon this year. And then not again for another 365 days. Cheers.
Zaxby couldn't be more wrong. You don't want Brie in anything, man. Damn, talk about a character who has -3 in fucking charisma. I mean, holy shit.
You know, I had the biggest crush on Brie Larson for the longest time. Man, since Mad Men.
No way. And I don't care that they barely talk. I don't want that. But I would say I would love to see the Edge of Nowhere. The one married to the Office guy. The fuck is her name? She does the horror movies where they can't talk.
Oh, Blunt, Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt. Yeah, I think Emily Blunt would be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, very cool. I think that she's a good actress. She also did a fairly good job in that. I thought she was sort of scary.
Yeah.
You know, sort of
good presence.
Not scary, but yeah, tense. Good presence. Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, this one from Jesus Crust. Last week's episode was really funny and helped me get through a long drive, so thanks to y'all. My question, do you have either a favorite or most memorable moment you can think of throughout the years of doing the podcast? It doesn't have to be your definite favorite. It can just be whatever first comes to mind.
I mean, I do for sure. And we have it as the cartoon. I think that when it was you, I think it was you at that time, but it was Sleeve and Reg, Silver, me. I don't remember if you were talking, but I think you were in the podcast when we were discussing if Amazon delivery used Tyrannosaurus Rex to deliver your supplies, and I made the cartoon for it.
Yeah.
That was one of the best. I mean, the thing is that I always enjoy the podcast. Sometimes you get a bunch of laughter, sometimes it'll be serious, sometimes it'll be whatever. That was one of the funniest, most hilarious times because it was so stupid, and that's the way I like to joke and talk, and you don't always get to do it because people have expectations. Here on this podcast, they don't. But at that point, I think we were on the primary channel, and I'm even pretty sure we were on YouTube. It was prior to this Twitch, because the Twitch channel sort of destroyed the podcast. Like, it was fine with me, but it was like, because YouTube was hammering us. And at the time, we were getting insane views, and we were just and there were a bunch of people in chat, and we were just having a good time. And I don't know how we got onto the combo, but it was the dumbest fucking 15 minutes, and to me that's the best goddamn, like, that was awesome.
I think it was because of that T-Rex tries to thing that I brought up, where it's
tries
a whole
to do stuff.
Yeah, it's a whole like comic thing where every time T-Rex is trying to do something with his little arms, so it's like T-Rex trying to hug, you know, T-Rex trying to wipe ass.
It might have been that, or it might have been Tomb Raider 1. because Tomb Raider
Yeah,
1
it
has.
could have been.
But I remember us joking about a Snickers, but trying to deliver a Snickers bar and not being able to talk English and being like, "Roar, roar, roar," and it was so fucking stupid. But yeah, that was awesome.
It's a good one. Next question from Knucklehead. Throwing in a second question, kind of a quick one. Are you guys coffee drinkers? If so, how do you like it? Personally, I like just enough creamer to cut through the bitterness and nothing else. Using a coconut flavored one currently. Fancy.
I like it like my ex-girlfriend's heart.
Just black.
Jet black. Cold and black.
And bitter.
And bitter. Cold, black, and bitter. It leaves an aftertaste. And cheap. No. When I drink coffee, it usually has stuff in it, and it's usually a lot of shots. A lot.
Do you drink like filtered style or more like
I'll drink
espresso?
Any coffee, but I'll put stuff in it. I grew up drinking black coffee because my dad at the fish plant, they never had time to make coffee.
Sure.
So it was a styrofoam cup that you get at the Dixie styrofoam cups, and it would just be filled with black coffee, and you just down it. And I got accustomed to that, but it's especially in the morning, it caused like acid reflux or whatever. So I switched over to creamer and stuff. I like creamer. I definitely like a little sugar in my coffee. I don't, but I just don't drink coffee, man. I'll get I'll get an iced espresso from a store or something occasionally, but I would rather drink. I mean, I've got like 3 of these on my desk, like monsters. I would rather drink a monster because they taste
interesting
in some way, like they taste like a fruit drink or whatever. That's just my thing.
I think I've drank a coffee in the morning after waking up for the past 4 or 5 years without fail.
Really? Damn.
Dude. I don't think a single day went by without me drinking a cup of coffee. I don't drink a lot.
What's that do for you? Does that make you does it make you turbo poo?
It's more of a little moment where I'm sitting down, kind of
just for you.
I gave the cat the food. I can kind of sort of sit down, look at something, enjoy my coffee.
Yeah.
It's more like just a moment itself than the caffeine, I think, because it doesn't have a great effect on me. I like espresso. I just enjoy that.
Yeah, I agree. I would probably drink an espresso before I drink anything, but that's also because like the black coffee, you don't really say give me 10 shots of black coffee. It's just more coffee. So it's like if I do get an espresso or whatever, I'll get shots in it because I'm not really drinking that stuff for taste. If I'm drinking coffee, it's probably because I'm tired and I don't have something. Because like a Mountain Dew won't do anything. Dude, I'll drink a Mountain Dew while I'm going to sleep. Like that, like I've drank a Monster before going to bed. But if I'm going to drink coffee, it's most likely because I'm tired and maybe we're at a place. And, you get that idea where they'll have a cool name. I will, if there's anything I'll experiment with, it probably is coffees though, because I joke about not being super experimental in food. But if there's like a cool coffee that somebody brings up and they're like, hey, we've got pumpkin latte, sugar and spice, I'll probably try that because I'm a cinnamon freak. I will say that.
Really? Yeah.
Fuck, I've got a cinnamon candle. I've got cinnamon drinks. Something about cinnamon. I used to make my own cinnamon toothpicks when I was a kid. You could buy cinnamon oil. By the way, does it destroy your hardwood floors if your brother and you were testing out spin kicks? It does. We destroyed a hardwood floor. Got in no end of fucking trouble for that. But you would buy the little cylinders and then you would put wood toothpicks in them. You'd let them soak it up, and then it would be like a cinnamon toothpick if you were working outside. It was just something you could do as a kid. I love cinnamon, man. Like hot chocolate, cinnamon, fuck. Ice cream, vanilla ice cream, sprinkle cinnamon on that, whip it up. Because you're not gonna, because I don't eat like ice cream in the scoop. If they scoop it, I usually have a tendency to like smash it. I guess I don't know how to describe it. I won't usually
break it up.
Yeah, I'll break it up, but put some cinnamon on that. Cinnamon is. I don't know what
great,
cinnamon is fucking dude.
Fantastic.
That's why wars were fought over spices because like pepper, salt, cinnamon.
Yeah, that
to
shit
me
was good. They were like, that shit. We're fighting over that.
Yeah, we're fighting over that. Yeah, can you imagine being on the Oregon Trail and some dude named Hummus or whatever is making you pork and beans with no seasoning, no salt? My dad was on a no salt diet and he made us eat it, and it was fucking.
Tragic.
it made you realize. It made you go, oh, that's why it's.
And
so
if you
important.
live your entire life on the no salt, no spice, and then suddenly you get served this like steak with fucking like salt, pepper,
dude. What is it about that too? By the way, because as a steak fan, though I haven't had red meat in ages, but as a steak fan, when you get a steak and just the lightest little bit, even if you've salted it prior, just the lightest little bit of salt, and you cut into it, and there's a little bit of fat, and your brain knows. It's like eating fried chicken. I'm not a fried chicken fan, but I was telling the guys yesterday, I randomly got some, and I ate it like a wolf on its last. It was ridiculous how fast I ate it. And I realized it was it was like fried chicken, the skin, like your brain knows.
And it's salty, it's delicious.
And your brain is like, whoa, I need that. Yeah. Like, I had that for a while. I zoned out.
Fuck everything else.
That's exactly right.
Eating this
Dude, it was like my blurred background. I swear to shit, I forgot what was going on for like 30 minutes because I tore into an 8-piece chicken. Yeah, and I came out of it and I was like, oh shit. Like that was good. I don't eat it very often. It's way too salty. And I get thirsty. The worst feeling is too much salt on something and afterwards. Where like you're full.
You feel it after,
thirsty.
But it's worth it for the moment.
It is, but that next couple hours can feel rough. But now I'm really want something cinnamon, vanilla ice cream, sprinkled cinnamon.
Yeah, as a kid, I ate like a whole spoon of cinnamon because I loved it. So I just thought it doesn't make sense to eat more of it, if you love it. But it doesn't work that way.
No, and in fact,
there's a hard limit.
There's a hard limit, and it's very dangerous for people. Like if you've seen the Instagram when that became a thing, and people
all that powder, you can like
not only that, but
that.
It fucks up. Cinnamon's acidic, and it'll fuck up your lungs if it gets into the membranes, and you can get pneumonia from any food. It's called food obstructive pneumonia. My dog can get it because we had to surgically do something to his larynx, and a fold is moved. So that means food has a slightly higher chance of getting into the lungs, and it's aspiration pneumonia. And it is deadly to people, to dogs, to whatever. It is horrendously deadly. So when people were just chawing the cinnamon, you would see doctors doing Instagrams going like, what do you do? Like, fuck.
Stop
doing that. Yeah, because it doesn't matter if you're old or young. If a material gets in your lungs, it'll
for a long time was a trend. The cinnamon challenge,
dude. Yeah, dude. I swear to you, that shit. You can start a trend. So so dumb. What else we got?
Last question here in the thread from Master Stoner 99. Do any of 99 is such a staple?
Yeah, it is a staple.
The name is taken. I need some numbers.
Yeah, I need some numbers at the end. 69.99. I'll go with 99.
Do any of you have a game that is just peak, but you just want to cut out a main character? How did you get through it? Just willpower or small breaks? Okay, I have the perfect example.
Continue.
By the way,
I'm going to let them in. Go ahead. So this is let me refresh this. This is a game we absolutely love that's absolutely peak, but there's one character we dislike and we wish we could remove him.
Yes.
Go.
And I have the perfect one because by removing this character, you would lose nothing in the game. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and even just the first remake, Chadley, the guy that's calling you at all times to tell you like about some fucking point of interest or whatever, and how you interacted with this shrine, get that out of the game. And you have a much better game in your hands. You don't even need to tweak anything. Just literally remove the character.
Is the requirement that they wouldn't affect the game, or you're just also saying you wouldn't lose it?
I am adding to it. I think mine is a stronger.
Okay. What character in chat would everybody remove from a game?
Mary Jane.
Yep. Yeah, there's not even a hesitation. I would remove Mary Jane from the spot. I think that Mary Jane as a character is totally fine, but I think in the games does a complete disservice to the pathing of the way the game works, the entire hero arc, because you're changing the viewpoint. The other one would be way more contentious. Liara from Mass Effect. I fucking hated that character. And I know everybody loves her, but
what's wrong with the blue aliens, man?
I hate everything about the character and the way they talk and their morals and their ideals. I just don't like them. Whatever.
A bit self-righteous. or something.
Yeah, for whatever reason. I mean, they grew on me, but I guess that's why I said it was a hot take, is it's almost too hot in the fact that that person does have DLC based on them. So like it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I would say for me, my real answer is Mary Jane. I feel like it's very, if you and I were making a game and I said, and that game was about all this stuff, and I said, let's change the viewpoint completely for no real reason. And in number 2, not only that, but technically give them fake powers, or what, not fake powers, but the ability to damage people as well, and blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't even become a rescue thing. It just doesn't, it does not work. And it never has worked. Nothing against the voice actors, nothing against the writers. It's just, for me, it makes no sense. And personally, I'll go with what you said. I cannot see any loss to that game by removing those levels, at least that I can see. And I've played Spider-Man 1 3 times, Spider-Man 2 twice, 4 times, and then Spider-Man 2 twice. And there has not been a time where I've walked away going, that would be a lesser game. I don't think it would. I think it's a lesser game because they're there. But
yeah, it's a bit harsh, but I mean, I kind of agree.
I think the Yara DLC was good. Yeah, I actually like that DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a hot take because it's like Jack in number 3, man. Jack in number 3 was like, they were off-putting, but they had some good power. You sort of grew to like them or whatever. I did the same with her over time. I grew to like them, but their initial, especially in number 1, I don't think I ever took her for anything. Just one of those things where you're like, you have a choice of characters to take. There's always going to be an odd man out, or you could, I guess, pick via skill, which I certainly did. Would I like risk success in a mission? No. But it didn't really require her unless it was a story mission thing. The rest of the people would overlap, so it wasn't a big deal. There's another character I feel we're missing. I feel like you and I've talked about this before, and I feel like I'm going to see Discord or see a chat, and I'll be mad at myself that we didn't say whoever I'm thinking of. I just don't.
Nata from Monster Hunter Wilds.
Jesus.
Although if you remove him,
right,
there's not much left of the story.
That's okay, because that story was not great. That character was, wow. That was a whole other vibe. I forgot about that. Dude, if you had not just mentioned that character, I bet you my brain at some point would have rewritten over that cluster of data,
erased,
and finally it would have been gone, because Jesus, it was annoying, and I sound like I'm annoyed, but it was less so even annoyed as just no reason. It was not for me.
Yeah.
What else we got?
That's it for questions.
That's it for questions. All right. I have a software suggest. So in the software suggest, we talk about stuff like Moonlighter. We talk about all these different files. I do want to bring up a particular software that was asked about a couple weeks ago. Somehow I missed a super chat. So if you're out there and you were the one who super chatted for this file, or for this executable on Windows, and I didn't get to you, I apologize. I should have seen that. But it's called Search My Files. So, dude, this thing is so awesome. One of the problems I have is I collect all my videos, and then I collect PDFs, and I collect instructional manuals because I like to read them because I'm a nerd. But I get overlaps a lot, a huge amount. And Search My Files lets you look for duplicates really fast. It uses an indexing system a little like everything.exe, where it has its own database of the files on Windows, and it's a much faster. It's probably the fastest way I've ever seen to remove duplicates from folders. And drives. And the cool thing about it is it also works on network drives. So I was able to go into the Synology, which I had all these extra files, and then compare it. Well, it compares it, obviously, to all the other files on all my drives. And the joke is that I have 20 drives, which is true. And it was able to find all the duplicates. It'll tell you the last time the duplicate was updated, last time it was accessed, if a duplicate has some other metadata that's different between the two. And it is massively, massively useful. It's like one of the first things that I install whenever I get on a PC. I set up the new PC, and it was, I think that one and everything.exe were the first two things. The other one that I've been using a bunch of, for controlling the PC and various things. I want to make sure I use the right term. Is Quick CPU. I don't know if you've ever used it, Johnny. Quick
No?
CPU is pretty wicked, man. It basically allows you to control a bunch of the overclocking on your CPU, but it also lets you control the power fluctuations in Windows. So you can not fluctuation, I'm sorry,
Cool.
but the power settings in Windows. But it lets you go even further than that, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It's free, or at least if there's a premium version, it's never alerted me I need to pay. And you just get it from their website, and it is awesome. Like, you can go in, I did it with the new PC. You can park cores or tell it to park more cores. You can change all of the power settings in it. You can lock turbo speeds for like Intel, because I have the little Intel, and it's got a particular amount of speed that the single core can hit before, and how long before it slows it down for heat issues. But I have a additional outside cooler on it. So I was able to like go and say, okay, and this is all within Windows, which is a little easier than going to your boot, your BIOS, and changing stuff. And my BIOS for this system isn't super detailed. So being able to go in there and adjust all this stuff is fucking awesome. And you can just play
Do you
around
need to
with
know
systems.
exactly what you're doing with
Dude,
these
it
values
tells
and
you
stuff?
as question mark. You click it, it either opens up their manual and explains it in real terms, which is nuts. So it doesn't do it. Okay, let me explain. If there was like a hexadecimal in there or whatever, it wouldn't say this is a changing blah 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 bit register. Blah, 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 blah. It actually will say the reason why you might want to change this is the reason why you want to do this is you can't do this on this core type. It's pretty cool. It's written like you or I would explain or try to write to a friend to help them with something. It's nice. It is a really nice software, and I think everybody in the Discord chat, I've suggested it to once or twice. Do you have any software, like anything, or hardware? By the way, we'll go to hardware too. You got any hardware?
I want to shout out DaVinci Resolve again, because we talked about it. But the fact that it's free and you can do so much in it. So not only video editing, right? Obviously, but for example, today I created a widget for my stream where it shows my Twitch handle, and I'm like doing some animations where like the Twitch logo shows up, it kind of moves around, and then it collapses on itself, this type of stuff. And you can do that literally within like a few minutes of looking up a YouTube video and learning like some basics about the Fusion tab and stuff. And the stuff you can do in very little time is awesome. And the fact that it's for free and it combines like the video editing with the like animations of elements like that is super nice. Because in the Premiere like suite, well, not Premiere, the Adobe suite, you have Premiere for video editing, and then you have After Effects, right?
After Effects, and you have Illustrator, and yeah, they're all split.
Yeah, so you kind of have like different apps for different things, and I think they do kind of talk to each other to some level. But but it is nice to have everything in one software. So if you get used to it and kind of learn to work with it, for me, it's been a really good both editor, but also for that type of stuff, creating little graphics and stuff.
I would say the only thing that bothers me about that one and why I don't switch is that all of the stuff I want to use is locked behind their $300 version of DaVinci.
Like some of the encoding and different things like that?
All the encoding, the acceleration, the AI cutter, which is really not, which sounds dark, but the AI cutter will go in and it will do all kinds of stuff to your audio to cut out gaps. It'll do all kinds of crazy things. They added them in the last update. But it's only one purchase, which is nice. Well, I guess it depends on what you think, because some people, like I know.
And it is pricey, but yeah.
I know Adobe Express is 100% free. And it's a Premiere that's cut down like DaVinci's free one. So I guess you could do that as well. Yeah, the one thing the thing about DaVinci is that it does things in a different way. So if you learn that and go to another one, it'll be weird. If you go from others to go to that, it'll be weird. But if you're happy with what you've got there, you've got most of what you need, even if you pay the full price for the one purchase, versus where with what I found with Premiere is in particular, stuff beyond what you're talking about, a little bit more advanced, but pretty close to what you're talking about, where I wanted to do some graphics, and almost every single time I try, it's like everybody will say that's After Effects, and you're like, God damn it. And some stuff that you're like, why After Effects? You know, there's some adjustment to whatever it may be, a graphic or something. You're like, seriously, I know this could be done in Premiere, you know, in some way. Like, they're purposely not putting it in Premiere. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way these companies split stuff, or some companies split stuff. But yeah, I like DaVinci. I always have it on the PC in case. Premiere has been, I don't even want to say, but in the past, Premiere was a disaster for me. That means in the past. I don't even want to black cat myself and say what you would think I was saying, but currently I don't have that issue. But I always have DaVinci, and I always have Microsoft's new one, or maybe not new one, but Microsoft's generic one, which is actually strangely fairly good for just if you wanted to get something done and be like lickety split. I would also say Lossless Cut is it occasionally makes mistakes, but Lossless Cut is free, and you can grab 10 files, just go cut, mix them together, hit export, and it's in seconds, which DaVinci cannot do. It still does a full encode. I don't know what Lossless Cut does, and it will mess up. I've tried to upload our podcast before after using Lossless Cut to remove the start, and occasionally, once every 10 podcasts, Anchor will be like, I have no clue what you sent me. So it took the cut, and it did it at a time that there was metadata being written, and I just, you know, I could have adjusted it. In the end, I just used Premiere to do it myself. But yeah, I like DaVinci as well. I would also say for people, NVIDIA Broadcast is really cool. You know, you can use it, especially if you have a headset mic and you want to clean up some of the noise and you have an NVIDIA card that supports it. AMD's got something like it, and I believe somebody's made a hack that you can generally use some parts of AMD cards to do this. But it's really nice for people getting started doing a podcast where they have a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And
background removal.
Yeah,
right? That's pretty good.
Dude, it's really tough too, because like if you turn it on, it doesn't matter what system you have, by the way. If you turn some background removal on OBS or Broadcast as well, you turn it up too much, your tone changes, you know, your voice will cut out. You know what I mean? It's like it won't ever get perfect, because perfect is being in a studio with an anechoic chamber, but not all of us can afford that. Not all of us are Jake Paul. Not all of us are dating a speed skater. What else do we got?
I had a science question.
Let's do this. Let's do some science.
Okay, so this is gonna sound really dumb, but either dumb or stoned. Like, bro, why is the night dark? I know it sounds kind of dumb, but hear me out, right? We live in this gigantic cosmos with like stars, suns in all directions. Surely their light will eventually hit us. So even though we're not getting light directly from our sun, shouldn't we see light from, like, are they just that far away? Or is it that maybe our eyes are so shit that we only see like a tiny portion of the light spectrum, where otherwise we might see a bunch of light, you know, infrared or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think, answered. He was talking about this in the last couple months, where he was saying that, you know, we see in such a limited fashion. And he was saying if humans saw in the radio band, you know, in like the gigahertz, you know, like your router, the world would be occluded by all this sound, like a 2.4 gigahertz. You wouldn't be able to see past it because there'd be so much interference. So it's all been made, and especially as humans have learned how to like not be in the dark and make their own. I'm sure there's probably studies that show that our eyes have adjusted even in the past like 200 years by can't remember the term for that, but there's a term for environmental DNA change that doesn't have to do with mutation. It has to do with quick changes. But the stars, yeah, you're right. But the thing is the stars don't collect, the light doesn't collect. It just, so the reason why it's not getting brighter, well, it would, do you know how it does get brighter? Weirdly enough, you would think this is the opposite, clouds, because clouds will diffuse the lighting. So in the Pacific Northwest, you'll go camping And if it's a starlit, if
Right.
it's a starred night but no moon, it'll be pretty fucking dark. You'll still see some because human eyes will become somewhat adjusted. You'll see some. But when it's cloudy, you'll actually see like the cloud glowing. It's, from the diffusing the light, and it becomes almost like a shade you put over something, and just that bit of light and how it diffuses you. On the other hand, if it's a rain cloud, like a thunder or storm cloud where it's super dark and it's filled with a ton of rain and there's a ton of like rain coming down, that shit's been dark as hell. I've gone camping where I'm telling you, people will be like, oh, let your eyes adjust to the night. And I was like, I think they are. It's been 3 hours and it's jet black out here. Just depends on where you are. Have you ever wondered, though, why games do blue night all the time? Like, you always hope there's going to be a true night, and you've got, like, let's say, Dragon's Dogma, which does dark nights well. You have Dark Souls that has some dark places, I think. I could even be wrong on that. But you have very few games do darkness correct. And I'm sure some of it had to do with hardware limitations of self-illuminating, or illuminated torches and, truly shining light out. But it's like when you play Dragon's Dogma versus Oblivion, Oblivion's got a fucking torch. Other than in a cave, which 90% of the time, every bit of plant life in that game glows. So it's like you don't need it most. You know what I mean?
Don't really need it.
Yeah, it sort of sucks. I like it when games just Operation Flashpoint does jet black nights, and you'll be out. Yes, it is a blast, and you'll use their night vision, which is based on true night vision. So all you see is that green and white, ugly 2D, and you're just like, I can't tell how far away this enemy is. It's so great. I love that kind of stuff.
It would be cool if you had better night vision as maybe the Khajiit, because you're a cat, right?
Don't one of the races have night vision as a spell? Because night vision's a spell in the game.
That could be a thing.
Because it does the black and white lines. I thought it was Khajiit, but I don't play Khajiit.
Right. No, me neither. But my point was more like, for everybody else, I would love it to be pitch black.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And then, maybe you're the one guy where, you have that advantage. And maybe you have like
But what about during bright days? Maybe you have negatives.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe have negatives. Yeah. That's super cool. I think it's just...
I think so too, Romulus. Really He's saying I think Skyrim did that. I think it was Skyrim. I think Oblivion didn't, but I think Skyrim did. Sorry, what were you going to say? I apologize.
Well, it's just really brutal when it's so dark.
Yeah.
It's very hard to...
I love it, though. I love it. It's so good. I like it because...
I think what made it work, too, was the... Sorry, cut you off there.
No, go for it.
The wagons. What were they called? The
quick travel wagons?
Yeah, because you could ride them, know, and that really... I think that really helped to have a bit more on tracks movement.
I was just going to say, I like that danger, and I love the idea of going out in like a Dragon's Dogma or whatever, and a normal place suddenly becomes dangerous because it is dark. And a goblin who you would waste is smashing you, and you're like, I can't see shit. And I love the idea of a 1-level character defeating a 40th level character because they're smart and they put the torch out or whatever. I love that kind of stuff in games.
And having to camp, plan around the logistics of like taking risks or not.
Yeah, I love that.
I really like that. Yeah.
Did you see rare. That the astrologists, I almost called them astrologers, the astrologists found the solitary black hole on accident? So most of the time,
what does it mean for it to be a solitary?
Most of the time, they see them either right near a planet, and the planet or other sun is orbiting them.
Yeah,
or
being like sucked in.
Yeah,
in the
or
quasar.
they see them in the center of a galaxy. This one was on accident found because they were staring at stars, and between the stars, and they can tell because of the gravitational lens, they could tell it wasn't anywhere near the star. It was in the gap. So basically, imagine a galaxy, our galaxy, it's sort of on the edge of their galaxy, but it's not near any of their stars, even though it slightly adjusted it. So they went and checked, and they found out it's like, I think it's one of the first ones that were sort of 100% sure that's just a solitary black hole that's just floating around in the middle of nowhere. We know that they exist. It's just they're almost impossible to see because you need
because the only way we see them is the interaction with other celestial bodies and like the quasars and stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's crazy we were able to even.
Yeah, I was on accident. They weren't looking for something like that. They were like, "Oh shit!" Right. What were you gonna say though?
Do you think what would be scarier? Do you think if you're like in a space suit, you're spacewalking, like you're loose, you've lost it, right? You have no way back. Yeah. You're just floating towards a black hole, ever so slowly. Would it be scarier for it to be like a giant black hole, or maybe a tiny one?
You mean like if you could see all the stars being like a huge set of stars being like,
yeah, because if it was a giant black hole, you probably wouldn't even see anything because it's just all black. But you might see around the edges, like in the periphery of your view, like stuff being distorted.
I have a feeling just because giant size, like something like that is still overall humans. I think I would be probably more scared of the big one. I'd probably be like, I can interstellar this. I can figure out a way to go around it or whatever. Use its gravitational.
Yeah, but we're not McConaughey, and we don't have the plot behind.
Or the Martian. So. We're not going to cut our own. I would tell you this: when you were discussing it, I was like, I would try to figure out a way to smash my own head, the headset.
Oh, you wouldn't want to experience the black
spaghettification? Hole? No, I would not. No, that's all right. Or being locked in a slow motion time where your brain synapses are being affected by the black hole gravity, so you think 1 second is a billion. No, thank you.
But I think in that process of spaghettification, like Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about, you would die pretty much immediately, wouldn't you? Like, it's not as if that would
No. Nope. You would still... every atom is affected slightly different by the gravity, so most likely, as you got sucked in at some point, you would start to feel a stretching, and it would be like a chiropractor. Your back would probably pop. You'd be like, oh, this is pretty good. Then a year later, things... Because it's galactic distances.
But aren't you getting sucked in faster the closer you are? So like
faster in galactic distances. I'm assuming we're going at whatever speed a human might be going in a spacesuit, which isn't very fast. So like you're just going towards it. It's a galactic distance. The idea of dying quickly, spaghettification, doesn't feel like the two go time and like go.
Right.
They don't go together.
Because I for some reason I had the idea of you being sucked in faster the closer you are.
You are,
and get it to a point where it's so fast.
Galactically, the distances mean you would slightly feel more and more gravitation on the top of your head. The one atom on the top of your head that's affected by a different atom gravity and and slowly being pulled over a year or however long it took. Nah, thanks. I don't know. If I could jet in there, I'd be fine, but it'd still hurt for a second. I would just rather freeze. I mean, dude, if you smash your thing, you're gonna the Russian cosmonaut who accidentally had his what do you call it opened? The top of his shuttle open. There's a story you can read about it. But he was exposed to true vacuum for like it wasn't a great deal of time. But it did it causes the inside of your body to try to push out your eyes and stuff. And it's like all kinds of things I don't need to. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. Would you be an astronaut? Well, that's a funny question because anybody can say whatever they want, but
yeah, you could say fuck yeah, but absolutely not, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to be an astronaut.
I would
I don't think the shit's prepped yet.
No, it's not prepped. Exactly. I'm going when there's like
100% success and Netflix
in the flight there.
Right. Exactly. That's such a good
after,
point.
Like.
And once you install Netflix on your shuttle or your takeoff, we know that you're getting commercial stuff. You're getting
when I can
keep
watching, season whatever of Dexter, whatever I'm watching.
Yeah.
Without interruption.
Yeah. Once it's got to that point, it's like, all right, now we know.
Now we're good.
Now we know where we are. We're good enough that you're wearing like your space shuttle socks.
And no, downloading it doesn't count. I'm either live streaming it or I'm not going. Because you could say I'll just download it. No, that's cheating.
If you went to Mars, what would be if they gave you a free day? It's your 7th day. It's you 6 days of working, right? Whoever it is who runs the place, Elon Musk or whatever is running the place, and he's like working you.
We're all in the mines.
You're in the mines,
just like feeding his.
Yeah, and the cosmic rays are bombarding you. But it's your 7th day. what do you do? What would be something you would want to do? It can be anything. It can be take a picture.
Good question.
It can be go for a Mars walk. What would be something you would want to do?
Yeah, I think just play some guitar. I'd like.
Oh, dude, that would be such a solitary. You would be the only one to have done that. That would be so cool. Playing music. And if you could. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Because I need the spacesuit, don't I, to be outside. We can't just chill.
No,
without the spaceship.
Oh yeah, no. I was thinking when you said guitar, I thought you meant inside, just like in the Martian movie.
Well, I had this image.
Were you doing a rock concert
or whatever? Like,
no, that's not.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
That's way beyond what I was talking about. I was just saying, like, what would be something you would? I would assume it's other than the wind, and there is enough particulate for sound, but I think the idea, I'm a huge fan of wind sounds. Like I go to sleep with the ocean sounds, blah, blah, blah. I like that white noise. I would love to be that person who like everything was just quiet. I would probably go on a walk as far away from the thing as I could safely and just like see if I could listen and hear what another world would sound like. Even though, honestly, it's going to sound exactly the same. But like you said, you'd be the first or like I was saying, you'd be the first person to probably play a guitar solo on Mars. Imagine the downloads on that shit. You'd be like, first song ever composed on Mars. That would be pretty fucking sweet, man. And if you ever got back and your DNA wasn't fucked up, you get a lot of chicks. Just saying. That'd be something you could end up working that into.
In fact, I think you could work that angle. Like if you're the only guitar playing person in the colony,
dude, that'd be so cool.
I think that's
Oh yeah.
That's some status right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of astronauts that are like models. I was saying if you came home, you'd be able to do it. If you went there, who knows? I mean, there might be somebody there who floats your boat. I think they were saying that a husband and wife.
You also get less and less picky over time. So
that is true. That is
literally true. Anyone will do.
I think there was a story about a husband and wife who were going up in the. So normally they don't do a husband and wife in shuttle flights because of danger of both parents passing away during an accident or something. But I think there were two people who were either married or dating. I'm pretty sure they were married because I remember reading this and they did have sex in space. I've always wondered how hard that would be.
Do we know if it's possible to
possible,
have normal sex?
Neil's talked about this and so did Cool Worlds. Cool Worlds, by the way, shout out to that channel. It's fucking awesome. I think Kyle Hill has joked about it in podcasts too, that humping in space is hard because you can't get, if it's 0G,
no leverage.
You look like a dog that is trying to hump the air. Their suit, their sleeping bags, the zip up sleeping bags, hook your feet in, they hook their feet in, zip it up a little bit.
Or a good point of leverage. You
can get some thrust in there. What if they're like, you're doing it and suddenly NASA's like, Houston, this is Houston to the, you guys have a slight reverberation repeating every like quarter second up there. Can you check it out? You're like, that's us. Damn it. They figured it out. I don't know.
I mean, but at that point you would have like programmed sex because they would want you to.
Programmed sex? What are you talking about?
Yeah. It's just like, this is your sex.
Nah, I'm not doing no. You mean
window?
Like you? Oh.
Well, both as a.
Oh, you don't mean a VR sex like where it's fake. You mean like you would have a time.
Like with the astronauts themselves, keep their sanity up.
Powder Keg just brought something up. Saturani, Surf with the Alien. Surfing with the Alien's a great album.
It is.
It's probably my favorite album of Saturani. Just laid back shit.
I think it's one of the only ones that I've listened to sort of like back to back.
Same.
The others are a bit more mixed for me. Where
he's eclectic,
I love
right?
one track, but yeah.
Dude, the same thing happens with like Richie Sambora. Any of the guitarists from like lead, they just have a tendency to break out of the whatever they're known for at the time. And Satriani, of course, is his own thing. But I'm just saying, I've listened to Sambora's stuff, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I really like 2 or 3 of these songs. But then he's like a jazz improv almost, and it doesn't always, their version of what they want to play is their version, and sometimes your brain it doesn't follow. The same way. It doesn't speak to you in whatever way. And then you'll get some of those solos. Dude, there's been the occasional like random song solo. It's usually songs, most likely because a song is structured and the solo has to fit in the structure. Well, depending. But there are some songs where like the solo is like one of the best things I've ever heard. Where like you'll be sitting, it might be the first time you hear a song and you're like, what in the fuck? That is incredible. Sorry, never a drum solo. Not being rude to drummers. I can't
not
deal.
Ever.
I can't deal. But if it's the like that guitar, especially that, I don't know why, but I love there's something about it where it fits right back into the song really well. Sometimes though, especially like older rock, they would do the guitar solo, fade out, vocals come up, but there's the occasional one where it's like going perfectly and then it's like psh, boom, and it hits and you're like, fuck, that solo is amazing. Like,
yeah,
it's just so
I love
good.
it. And I love when they also use some of the melodies from the singer.
Exactly.
Solo,
that's, I guess, what I meant.
In a way that like reminds you,
and it's in the
you recognize the phrase.
Yes,
you know,
so
it's
good.
It's kind of,
it's so good, man. Great. It's so good. I wish I was skilled like that because, like, I can't.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole.
I can
craft,
hum it or sing it, and I can somewhat make it, but I can't play it. Like,
yeah.
like
you know that's a funny thing that all of us are musically equipped, in the sense that you could hum
exactly
to a sequence of chords.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everybody can do this, by the way. You can hum and be in tune instinctively.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when you pick up a guitar is
sing. We should add that when you try to sing.
Right. Is that you're going to get notes wrong unless you actually know the scales.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have all the intervals. But when you're like instinctively humming and stuff, your brain is automatically putting you on these set notes that you understand belong.
And
it's almost like a xylophone.
You have to do what I do too. Have you ever heard one of those, Johnny, and you make your own arpeggio in it that fits within the guitar solo that's not the guitar solo? Like, so I'll hear a guitar solo and I will make my own tune that fits perfectly. I'll be like, or I'll change it slightly and I'll be like, oh, I wish they sort of played that. That can happen, but like you said, if you pick up an instrument, it's not going to happen. Like, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Music is awesome, man. Something about music. Like, I'm so glad to see the games, games coverage, people saying. And what's funny about games coverage, at least what I've noticed, is even with the coverage of Expedition, people might say it's good who cover the games, but what I've noticed is it's actually fans, even in this chat, and then there were people in the Discord who were like talking about it, and they were picking out instruments, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, people are starting to pick up on that kind of stuff, which I always think is awesome. It's probably going to be another place of pinky up shit, where suddenly somebody's like, music isn't good enough for me to play the game. It's like, turn the fucking slider down. Come on.
Yeah.
But Alps, of course, has to be the one to say this. I know people who can't intuitively hum. He knows somebody who can't intuitively hum. I don't know why he would remember that, but it's like, dude, you point them out in a group, everybody's humming, and they're doing normal humming, which everybody can do, and suddenly somebody's like, and you're like, dude, you cannot intuitively hum. Get out.
Yeah, obviously there are levels to this. Like, some people are super good. They can do this perfectly, and other people will fuck up. Yeah.
I should have known that was going to pop up. It's like, there's always somebody who's like, where are your Wheaties, dude? Because I got to piss in them. What else do we have do we have anything else? Do we have anything more with science? There hasn't been a bunch of science stuff. I've been tracking it. There hasn't really. Cool Worlds has done a couple, but they're repeating themselves now. There's been a lot of like, oh, dude, last thing we'll talk about. And I only read a little bit about this, but I suggest you read about it. It's not as much the Great Rip, which we've talked about, like reality ripping, like at the end of the universe, blah, 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 if that was possible. It's vacuum state change into the universe. Now, admittedly, the thing that was talking about this said that because of the way it would happen, it would take longer than the age of the universe for this ending to happen. So it's not something people need to worry about.
We're good.
Right. But one of the things was a vacuum state, and they were talking about when they were originally going and trying to find the what do you call it, particle, the main one, Higgs boson. When they were going to find it, if it had proven to be slightly more unstable, affected by the things around it, temperature, what's around it, heat, all that. If it had been slightly more unstable, there would have been a chance that as the universe is spreading out, there would be a vacuum state change where its unstableness would impact the next and impact the next. And it's called a vacuum state change, which would then change all of physics at the exact same time. But it would travel at the speed of light. So if it is happening somewhere, it wouldn't, like, we wouldn't notice or anything like that.
It wouldn't get to you.
But it was a very cool, like, the way they were describing it. Because I'm always interested in, like, the Great Crunch, or, like, will everything just die out? Like, if you were the last person on Earth, the last time a star winked out, you know, because everything spreads.
I always have this terrifying image of, like,
cosmic
imagine civilization goes out for some reason and resurfaces many
billions of years later, and somehow we're still here.
Billions, right? Or millions, whatever, to the point where everything around us is so far that their light no longer gets to us. So when we look with telescopes, we see absolutely nothing in outer space. And we would, funny enough, come full circle to the understanding that we're the only thing, we're the center, right? Of the universe, because we see nothing else. So,
Relevzeriken, sorry. He says, I like to change song endings in my head. That is exactly what I was talking about. Yeah. I don't know why, but almost every song I'll mess around and be like, there was something else. I think we talked about this the other time too, which is that if, they were talking about technically single-celled life started fairly as quick as it possibly could. Like, overall in a cosmic scale. But I was thinking in my head, like, what if humanity didn't? It took a little longer. And instead, when we looked up at the sky, you saw nothing because we started, at that point, or another, and you're just like, there's a void. That would be haunting. That would be like,
it would be tragic.
It would be.
There's all this universe, and that we just would never know about it.
Do you think Star Trek and Star Wars and all these things ultimately failed a little bit in us, in the fact that, especially at first with Star Trek, where they didn't have enough money, so, like, well, the Gorn looked like Gorn, right? They were green, their big bulbous head looked terrible, but do you think it's ultimately failed in a weird way to destroy some of the wonder when a lot of the aliens looked human? Because, like, imagine this. Imagine we're sitting here, you and I are talking, and the news comes on, and it's like, Lothar the Thuglik III has arrived on planet Earth from another. And it's a dude who looks like a guy who sold us espresso at the starting, right? He's got a beanie and a beard,
disappointed,
and some bags under his eyes, and he's like, so I run, Alpha Centauri 99, with my galactic.
He sells hot dogs, or the equivalent.
Their food tastes the same. They're, that's like every movie where you'd be like, you're eating a steak.
They have pigs
you're eating
too,
a steak,
so
and they have steak. You're eating, you're like, hey, let me introduce you to this chicken, and they're like, Googloks? We got Googloks. Those are just, but their beak is upwards or whatever, and you're like, not as cool. On the other hand, if the race was completely alien to us, then I guess it would be even shittier if they showed up like a globe. What are the Mass Effect aliens that are blue globs? God, I love those guys. The ones that are just floating, they look like, well, admittedly, they look like jellyfish. I mean, let's be honest. Humans still need a reference. But I loved those guys. I also liked the big elephant looking ones. Who were they, the ones who talked and were like, ultimate sadness, I cannot help you, Shepard, dude.
Those guys,
the Eeyores, they're Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh as a fucking
okay, I remember.
I love those guys.
They had a thing in the
dude, I just love
in the Citadel.
In the Citadel. I love the way they talk. I love righteous,
because they have to transmit the emotion in this way.
One of the coolest sci-fi books I've ever read. Do you have to take a piss? Because I can keep yakking while you're taking a piss.
I'm doing my best.
Okay,
here.
real quick.
I
was going to say one of the best science fiction books I had read was the race that they spoke, but there were like 7 other tones humans couldn't hear above and below because they had a second and third larynx, and so when they would talk, it would sound emotional, all that kind of stuff, but you could literally say "good job." Sort of like our sarcasm, good job.
You can send like
but this would sound,
some other metadata.
There were all this, and so while they were talking to the humans, they were ultimately always planning against them, because underneath these tones were these other things. I also like it when alien races have color changes, because especially if you look at birds or reptiles, color is huge. Like whether it be the color of striped down snakes' backs, whether it be birds and plumage, and in not racial stuff, but in other races, other alien races, blue is like we stuck at blue, but it's like when you look at it, there's all kinds of birds that do crazy shit. There's different reptiles that can change the color, geckos, that kind. I love the idea of being able to. Is it geckos that can change the color? I don't know why I said that. I think it's geckos. Chameleon.
I think so.
I don't know why. It's chameleon. I don't know why I was changing that. Yeah. But I love the idea of communicating with color changes. If you look at jellyfish under the water, you'll have ones that can strobe and flash, and it's like they're probably plotting against us.
Yeah, I'm reading a book now, a fantasy book, and one species of people, they have rhythms. They hum while they speak. So they are speaking to you over the rhythm of, let's say, peace. So that, that's what they're transmitting, or they're over the rhythm of despair, if they're feeling that.
That's cool. So, is sci-fi or is it fantasy?
It's epic fantasy. It's a Brandon Sanderson book.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, God. I'm just joking.
Dude,
I'll find
someday
a book I like.
We'll get you on the Sanderson train.
Well, that one sort of interests me. I mean, I definitely like that. I like that because
it's pretty cool.
Kevin asked if it's a Stormlight Archive.
It is Stormlight Archive. Yes.
I like the idea of the because like when you look at human slang, we were joking about mid earlier. You've got all these slangs, right? And we have intonation, definitely, the way you change certain things. I love how you can intone something. You can change, even if you go when you and I first started to know each other, and Lansby still does this, you guys would accidentally put in the word but when you were agreeing.
Oh, and that throws a gem in the works.
Fuck, was I confused. Yeah. Dude, how many times were you and I in that chat?
So are you saying you disagree? What?
Oh my God, Lansby, man. We'd be in there with Lansby just maybe 9 months ago, a year ago. We were in there with Lansby, and he was like, but, and because he's thinking in English, because I can't remember what his native tongue is, actually. But anyway.
He's Danish.
He's Danish. And he was using but he would say the same thing you said, and I'd be all, I don't understand. Am I not fucking being clear right now? Like, what am I doing wrong? And I'd be like, are you agreeing? Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, okay, because you're using, it's like and or, right? And or, entire wars have been fought over the word and. Religions have changed.
Isn't that a whole speaking thing where instead of using but, use and?
Yeah.
So like if you tell me something and I slightly disagree with it, I will say, yes, and or like, sort of like add to it.
You could use or to add something, but but usually means you want to point out something from the prior.
I'm kind of saying no to your thing.
Yeah. But, and if you say and, well, then you're just adding on to whatever. Yeah, it's always fascinating to me. That's one of the reasons why I love talking to you guys, because like when you get even Reg, not so much Reg anymore now, I guess, but there'll be the occasional time where he'll say something and I'll realize that maybe it sounds pointed to somebody where it's like, for example, Reg will straight up laugh at you. Reg is really quick with his laugh, very quick. And so something will happen and he'll laugh. And I'm like, if that was anybody else,
someone could take it.
Somebody would take that wrong, but because it's Reg is so quick to find humor in something, or the laughter is almost like saying I agree, I guess, in a weird way, sometimes. But I do find it enjoyable to get groups in there and see how everybody, not Zaxby, Brav spelled, he spoke Spanish and he spoke something else, and I remember when I was talking to him, I was confusing him by something I was saying, completely confusing him, because what I was saying was like, that would have been Spanish, female, the male-female connotation. I think is what it
Yeah.
was. And I had completely
Yes.
confused him into thinking something really questionable was happening. And he was like, oh, no, I get it now. I get what you're saying. I love that kind of stuff. It's so fun, man. That kind of shit is great. That's one of the reasons why I love getting you guys in there. Always have something different. Speaking of something different, we're at 3 hours, 30 minutes just for the video. So we'll wrap it up here. What do you got for this weekend? What are you going to
Beautiful.
stream?
I think I'm just going to play some more Expedition. I'm liking it so far.
You going to stream it, or are you
doing
doing
yeah,
that
I'm
one?
still... Yeah, I think I will to some extent, but yeah, depends on the energy.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to decide, right?
It's super nice. Yeah, I'm not really keeping myself like stuck to a schedule anymore. But I do stream on Twitch, so Johnny Plays Live. If you want to check me out.
Do you real quick? Do you find that
it's a good time
because you don't that you do more often? Because I found that for me. If I don't have the stress,
some
I'll
weeks,
do it more
yes,
often.
for sure. Some weeks, yes. The freedom is just nice because I know that every time I stream, I'm gonna have great energy because I'm doing it, in the right mind space.
Yeah, I love that. Anyway, that'll be it for us. If you guys get a chance, check out the May games. There are a ton of May games on that video, and I'm sure I missed 2,000 because there are a bunch of titles coming out in May. Check out Johnny's channel, Johnny Plays Live. I will be doing a video. I don't know what the next video is, but it'll be early next week, I think. And then we've got May is just going to be packed. So you'll be seeing, hopefully you'll be seeing from us. I mean, hopefully I'll be able to get some videos out. And other than that, come check the Discord out, man. We have good conversations like this all the time. We actually do have intelligent conversations in a Discord. Not always.
True.
Not always. Most of the time. 50%. 50% are scientific and really highfalutin. The other 50% is terrible. And you don't want to have your speakers on around family members.
Yeah, we've had some with solar that definitely not family friendly, but
that's 90-10% now. That's 90-10. We're 50-50. He's 90-10 for sure. Anyway, that'll be it for us. Peace out, everybody. Enjoy.